Nice to see few of you here. Requesting the rest of the participants who may be out of the hall to please move inside and take your seats. We will be starting now. We hope you've had a restful evening. And it was really pleasant to see at the breakfast table how there was so much buzz with all the conversations happening around, with people getting to know each other. So that was such a joy to witness. And we're so happy to have you back here for our day 2 of the Alive Conference 2025. So welcome to each of you. And we are looking forward to some really interactive sessions today to begin with. We have Dr. Sunita, and I request Jibi to speak more about it.
We now invite Dr. Sunita Verghese, a physician and postgraduate in community health and palliative medicine from CMC Vellore. She has over 15 years of experience in working in rural India, focusing on holistic community health. She is a singer, songwriter. She has released several singles. In 2022, she and her husband, Dr. Sujit Verghese, received CMC's Alumni Award for Meritorious Service. They now reside in Kunnur, Tamil Nadu with their 2 children. We now invite her to deliver a keynote address on the topic Art, Healing and Rituals and Therapy, exploring the transforming power of art in trauma recovery.
Good morning, everyone. Oh, come, we can do better than that. Good morning. Yeah. You know, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting to do my session. It was supposed to have been yesterday, and it got pushed by the organizers. And then I've been sitting and waiting for all the participants to come back inside. I know you're having a great time. Yeah. Anyway, so coming to the session. Well, yesterday was quite a heavy day for most of us, wasn't it? Hearing all the stories, it was actually quite an emotion-evoking day, actually. And I was also, towards the end of the day, I was also wondering whether I was, up to it to take a session like this at that point, because even us just listening also need time to process, isn't it? Did you feel that? Yeah, and I think over the events of the evening, after the sessions were over, many of us took time to recover, knowingly or unknowingly. You might not have realized, but you yourself did things to help yourself recover from what we heard and what we experienced and what we saw through the eyes of the survivors yesterday. Okay, so today I hope we can start off on this note of recovery, and my session is actually something that is geared towards recovery, okay, and how we can move on this journey of recovery. And one of the tools to move on this is actually art has been found to be one of those tools. So my background is this. I did my MD in community health, so I have a lot of experience working with communities, and I worked in remote Uttar Pradesh for several years. So specifically I worked a lot with people who had undergone systemic trauma, if you know what that means, the oppression that people face due to existing systems. That could be caste, that could be gender, but there's a trauma that evolves out of that. So I worked specifically with those. I worked with patients and families who needed palliative care for a dying person. So I've worked closely with dealing with loss, with death, dying, grieving. All those processes are areas that I've really, over the years, have come to understand a little more. Besides that, for my own personal, in my own personal journey, I found a big release through expression, and for me it was through song. I'm a songwriter, and many of my emotionally difficult days, I found myself expressing myself through my own songs. And mostly it was for myself. It wasn't for anybody else. It was for myself. And I found great joy in that. I shared it with my family. I shared it with my church. And I was encouraged to take it out to the world. And I was glad I did it because many people reached out to me after I'd released them that they had found a similar healing too. So, you know, this process of healing, it's not just for yourself, but it's for each other. Okay, so when we are experiencing some sort of healing in our life, let's not keep it to ourselves, but let's express it so that others may also benefit from it. Okay, so that's something that I wanted to share at the onset of this. Okay, so I was told this is a big scientific session by the organizers. So I have a lot of scientific content, yeah, but I'm not going to go through all of this, okay? We'll keep it more personal. And you know what, I don't bite, so maybe we can fill in the chairs in the front. And it's a little more personal and interactive. I won't ask any hard questions that will stump you, that will embarrass you. Okay, so just feel free to come sit in front. Yeah, thank you so much. These cameras are all there and in the way. Otherwise, it would have been really good to come much more closer. Okay, are we good? Okay, so my purpose in this is to awaken in you and a realization that something as simple as art, and art doesn't mean just drawing, art is a lot more than that. My objective is that you would awaken yourself to the use of art in your own life and in the lives of others. Okay, so we are having all our sessions based on collective trauma, and this is an area where art and expression of people's expression through art could be of great use in the journey of healing. Okay, so I have this picture up here. There are two pictures. So the picture here, what feelings evoke when you look at a picture like that? Or let's say you're driving through beautiful Wayanad. What feelings actually come up? What happens inside you? How great thou art. Yes, you feel inspired and amazed at God's creation. That's right. Any other thoughts? Romantic nostalgia. Yeah, you think about the good things of the past. You think about, many other such beautiful memories that you have, right? Any other thoughts? There are no wrong answers, okay? Your thoughts are your thoughts. I'm not going to say wrong, your answer is wrong, you don't think that way. No, it's your thought. So please take the freedom to express yourself. Yes? Okay, so to you, God is saying that He is there, or you are in there. You are in that, you are a part of it. So a picture like this brings an identity for you that this is all something that you are a part of, and you feel part of something bigger than yourself. Yeah? Any other thoughts? Therapeutic, wonderful. That's such a nice word. You feel better. You feel at peace. Yeah, you feel calmed down. Yeah, you feel calmed down. Yeah. Any other thoughts? Okay, so just looking at a scene like this. So this is a picture, and we were talking about a scenery. Looking at something of great beauty to the person who's looking itself creates so much of an emotion, right? So then think of the person who's creating. How much of emotion is actually packed into the person who's creating, into the creator of the world or of a piece of art. So you see, art is really very much entwined with our emotions and our cultures. This side is actually pictures of, various cultures and their expressions of art. Whoever made these pieces had something to express, and it's universal all over the world. Whichever culture you pick, there is some sort of art that exists, because this desire to express is something so human. One of the psychologists that you mentioned yesterday, Johan, Nietzsche, I don't know how to pronounce, Nietzsche, right? Nietzsche. So he said that art is one of the highest forms of self-expression. Okay, so let's keep this in mind as we look at art today. So I'm not a trained artist. I've only learned from experience. I've just enjoyed doing what I like to do. So I say that as a disclaimer. Now a question to you. Arts versus science. Have any of you thought about this? Yeah? Especially as we help our children choose subjects for their studies, we really think about this a lot. And where do we lean towards many times? Science. Many times we really lean towards it. I know that in my life. So I don't think I had a great choice, but science was the way. That's the way our culture actually is. And now with my children, I'm realizing that all cultures are not the same. So my children study in a Cambridge school. And this demarcation of, art and science being in two different directions is just not there. It's so equally valued. It's so equally valued. And there is such a method to the arts. It's not just about the teacher drawing something on the board and all the children copying. It's not like that. There's so much of an expression and so much of a method. And sometimes I wonder, I think I would want to call it a science of art, the way that art has actually become today. But many times we are so unaware about it. And it's, divergent streams. But what I'm seeing today, as I looked at evidences to see what the role of arts has been specifically in collective trauma, I've realized that there's this sort of a convergence of many of these disciplines. And in fact, what I put up on top here is actually what was there on the WHO website. And I was so happy to see that the WHO was recognizing arts as something healing and has incorporated arts and expression of arts into mental health events. So, it's coming together, and that's a very good sign for the world that I see. So I'm quite delighted by that, and I know that this will actually bring a lot more of benefits to all of our cultures and all of our worlds. So, as part of the scientific session, here is some scientific evidence for those of you who still would hold on to that science is the way and we need evidence for every single thing that we do. There has been evidence that is collected by various scientists, various social scientists, about the effectiveness of art, specifically in collective trauma. So if you look at the effectiveness of art in different aspects of trauma, there is evidence for each of it. And I think we are all familiar with the way art has been used for individuals. We've seen some or heard some stories of how therapists work using art to get traumatized people to express themselves. So we've seen a lot of that. But the fact also remains, and evidence is there now to show that in events that cause collective trauma, the survivors have really benefited from using some sort of art to express themselves. So, yeah, I'll be coming to many of these later, so I'm not going to dwell on this slide and read it out to you. And there are a lot of articles that have been published with, specifically about children and specifically about adults, and even about the disasters that have happened within our country, the role arts has played in helping people grow resilience and come out of their difficulty, their struggles. So that has been something. Now, I'm saying this with a thought that art is one of the ways. It's not the only way, and I want to recommend this as a good way for expression, but I acknowledge that it's not the only way, and there are several ways, and all of these ways together do help people recover and emerge out of their trauma and come out as victors. I've put some pictures. I really wanted to put them as separate slides, but then I realized there will be so many pictures and so much to absorb. So these are actually artworks done by the survivors of Hurricane Maria that happened in Puerto Rico. And following the huge tragedy that happened there, several psychotherapists, several counselors, and artists all got together and worked with different groups of people to create some sort of artwork. Okay, so if you look at them, there's a picture of, an expression of what the hurricane was about. You see that cross and a graveyard there. You see pets floating underwater. I think it's an expression of, how they wish they could have saved a lot more of life. And then how large and dangerous, aquatic life seemed at that point. And, there are so many ways of interpreting what the artists have done. But these are all, artwork that has been collective. It's been communities who sat down together and expressed themselves through these pieces of art. This is also artwork that emerged out of communities following the tsunami. And there's been a lot of work in different parts of the world. Different parts of the world were affected in their own ways by the tsunami. And these are some examples of how children, how youngsters, youth, and there's collective art, there's individual art, all of it has been, expressions that have been preserved to continue to remember. And even after the healing is over, to be able to look at those pictures and recollect what their journey was all about. It's something, like a souvenir, something that you can keep with you and look back again without going through the trauma entirely. Coming closer to home, actually, these are also part of tsunami. So art is not just about drawings. It's not just what you do with paints and colors. You can actually do with your hands. This is a Nozomi project that was done by survivors of the tsunami in a part of the world. They use broken pieces of pots after the tragedy to create artwork like this, earrings and jewelry and other pretty things. So that feeling of turning something that was broken into something that was beautiful, that sort of a transformation for the person who was doing it was very healing. And if you can look it up, it's beautiful videos to watch about how the survivors actually used this and sold them, made a living, and remembered their journey together as women sat and did this together. This is also some jewelry from that. Coming closer to home, 2018 we had floods in Kerala. I'm sure many of us here might have experienced some of the trauma that was there during that time. Were any of you involved were any of your houses affected for the floods in 2018 in Kerala? No? Okay. My town was actually submerged. I come from the town of Chalukudi, and the river Chalukudi Pura overflowed. And many of our houses in my town were completely submerged. The warning system was good, so families were evacuated and we didn't have many casualties. But nevertheless, it was extremely traumatic. My brother and his family, my mother, they were all there at that time, and I was in UP at that point. It was very frightening because phones were not working. I couldn't get information about them at all. It was quite a traumatic event. And even today, my mother and brother look back at those days and remember how traumatic it was. When I visited Chalukudi 6 months later, just on my annual leave, every family I met actually talked about, they had only that to talk about. But this is one of the drawings that came out of that tragedy, and you see this expression of, what all happened there. There's this person, there's a boat and a rescuer there. So, they're remembering the bad memories and the good memories together. This is actually, there were saris, women, all the clothes, everybody's items, household items were totally submerged and destroyed. These dolls are actually made out of saris that were unusable after the tragedy. And this is also something that I preserve, that I saw in my town. Another beautiful thing that I saw in my town a year later when I had gone again was a hotel. And one of the walls of the hotel had a mark of water. And they say that it was exactly up to that level that the waters had reached inside the hotel. And they were, a similar drawing. They had fish, they had crab, and all the stories. Like I remember the story that my classmates were saying is that when they went to clean up the houses later, after the waters had receded, one of the houses had a crocodile inside them. And that was, such a story. So I was very amused to see that crocodile was also there in that picture. So you see, it was, holding a lot of these memories, of, stories and events. Today, because we did not have many casualties as human casualties, we look back and, we can recollect in a positive way. But in a state of tragedy, where we've lost so many lives, that process would certainly be much, much more longer. But nevertheless, it's a memory to create as a community. Dr. Valsa will be taking sessions more on this. I think the session after mine is on trauma-informed approach to healing. So I'm not going to go to this slide, but it's just to say that these approaches have been scientifically studied, and it's using information that is there to build community and individual resilience, and to go towards this process of healing, engagement, and empowerment. I've put the slide here. One is, as I talked earlier about arts and sciences, it's in a situation like this, where, I'm thinking it would be wonderful to use art to heal. It's not enough that, you think of art alone, but there are, several disciplines that have to come together and value each other so that we can take this sort of a process forward. So this is one discipline, art and design, another discipline of health and psychology and social work, another discipline of, the government's management and planning systems, okay? So often we work in isolation, and even within the health system, we are so aware that everything is working in isolation. TB department takes care of only TB, and we fail to see how, we have to work together. So we often continue to work in isolation. Sometimes we work in a multidisciplinary way in which, we share with each other, we consult with each other. Yesterday, Dr. Shahnawaz's presentation also, he touched upon this, how each department is working in isolation. And sometimes we merge a little bit. But when we want to do something as large as, using art for collective trauma healing, it really has to be transdisciplinary. It means that I have to forget that I'm a health worker, and I have to, be very fluid in the roles that I play in such an event. So that's what this transdisciplinary, I thought this picture sort of expressed what it means. So for many of us who are in different roles, we may be specifically going in as a counselor or as a pastor or as a teacher. We may have to, forget those roles and take on a new role. And that's part of you. But unless we do that, we may not be able to sufficiently help the people who are affected. This process also informs, when we need to sit down and do these work, there's a lot of creating a safe environment. Are you familiar with what a safe environment is? It's about a psychological safety. Many times, in a group setting, why do we hesitate to give answers? Because, being criticized, we are very afraid of that. We are afraid everybody will, you said it very sincerely and then suddenly everybody laughed. So, there are these fears that we have. But building an environment of, psychological safety is so important in helping survivors recover, especially when we're using art. That means if somebody produces something, nobody is going to say that this doesn't look good. It's not good enough. The fish doesn't look like a fish. We're not going to say things like that. We're going to create a very safe environment in which people are free to express. And you understand that that person is that person. And he has the freedom to express himself in whatever way. And to him, that fish is really a fish. So let it be. We are not going to dwell over it. The point is that that person recovers, and it's not about our aesthetics or our expectations out of a person. Okay, so similarly, there's the building of trust, and a person, unless you create that psychological safety, you will not have trust emerging there. You have to create it and demonstrate it. Otherwise, you will not have trust emerging there. And without trust, we cannot really go forward. Each other, so that's not just about the person who's facilitating, but with each other, the participants with each other. Also, it really needs to grow. So I'll come upon these aspects a little more later. Just a short note, yesterday Johan had also talked about differences about, individual and collective. I think to a certain extent we have an understanding of what individual trauma therapy would mean, and even in arts it's the same. You work with a person, it's, personalized and tailored to that person and his experiences, his needs, his trauma, and we explore around that person what they have experienced. And it's highly customized, it's very, very confidential. There are rules about it that, what is there is very, very confidential. And that person actually grows in a certain amount of confidence. Now, when we do this in a group, what do you imagine differences could be? When we're having a group of people who've been traumatized by a same event, the focus is slightly different. So the focus there, instead of individual recovery, it's actually going to focus on a collective mode. When I worked with women who suffered from domestic violence, we did something, so I mentioned this as systemic trauma. So the focus was so much not on the woman and her experience, but as a community, what they experienced and what they felt together as women who've been through that trauma. They may not have expressed it to each other before, but as they sat together, that solidarity somehow came through. Okay, and that itself was very, very therapeutic, because they felt they were not alone on this. They felt that, together we can do something. Those sort of feelings, and that's a different level of empowerment actually. That's a different level of, togetherness and a hope for the future that people actually can see when you start to work with them as groups. So one of the challenges that you need to have people come on board together, and then you wait till the last person comes on board, because otherwise it's not really going to be effective. We need to have that unity of mind to go forward on something. Okay, coming to some techniques. Like I said earlier, drawing is not the only way. There are so many other ways of expressing yourself through art. Actually, silence is one way. And by silence, to me, it means work with my hands, in which I'm not speaking. But silence could be so many other things too. Movement means what? Dance, yes, dance. Those are all. So in a culture, in any particular culture, it's sort of important to harness on those. So in my communities in Uttar Pradesh, what I realized is this drama and storytelling was a big thing. So they love to, have little plays, and we organized these sort of plays in communities. And there was this very beautiful way of, we were able to talk about important community issues through drama, but make it extremely flexible and keep the community involved. They're not just watching. So a group of women we had trained to help to do a little drama to raise awareness about the effects of alcoholism. So we had them play out a story of an event in a house, and then we would stop the story there and ask the community, what do you think could have been better? Could something have been different in the story? And based on what they say, we would rewind the story and go back and then see how it worked in another way. So, these are all possibilities that are there, and it's so healing, because it really brought the women who were the artists, they're just ordinary women from the community, and the larger community, all of this actually came together. So in terms of, the process of healing for the women who are troubled with the issue of alcoholism in their communities, it was actually something, and a bit of a learning for many of the others who are onlooking. So that's one way. Sound in itself, music and rhythms, all of these in itself have been shown to be deeply healing. And many times we ourselves, when we are depressed, we want to listen to some music that will uplift our souls. All of these have qualities that are very beneficial. So as I mentioned earlier, there are a lot of benefits. We talked about it through the stories that I just mentioned. For the community, once you create a safe space around a piece of art that they're doing together, that safe space actually continues. They learn to respect each other and to communicate in ways like never before. And you find that they themselves change as a person. For the people who are involved in the art, it's highly empowering that, you know, something that they created is so valued. You may begin to see dialogue, talks happening about things that have never been talked about. And it facilitates a lot of communication, actually. And the best thing about it is it's a great documentation and preservation of what has happened. Like I told about the hotel in Chalakudi, which had this, it's such a great document. Anybody who goes in will stop and look and ask, what is this about? What is that about? Can you tell me? It's such a great documentation and a venue for expression. But you know, it just doesn't happen on its own. We really, those of us who are wanting to go further into this, we really have to focus, I can't emphasize this more, on an environment that is inclusive. That means each and every person must have an equal role and equal part in this. It's not just about a few survivors, but everybody must take part in it. It has to be inclusive. Nobody should be left out. Nobody should feel left out. It's a time in which, you know, understanding the way communities work together, engaging them, facilitating with communities. How do you get a person who's, you know, extremely quiet? How do you get them to speak? How do you get somebody who's talking all the time to stop talking and, you know, listen to others? So there are all these things that you really need to understand and know a little more and gain experience with that. So that's something that's important. I have another side on cultural sensitivity. I'll come to that. And the knowledge of the various techniques, because somebody may come to you with wanting to do this. A little idea, if you don't know, ask somebody else. You know, a little idea of, you know, well, fabric paint with fabric or, you know, all those technical things about it. Yeah, and this is actually an understanding that it's not top down. It's not what I say should be drawn or should be made, but it's about what, as a group, as they come to a decision. So it may take a lot of time, but then it's worthwhile because it stays with them for a long time. That's what makes it sustainable. And you must have the mindset of being flexible. Okay, today they wanted to do art, tomorrow they think it's not a great idea, we'll do a dance. You know, so be ready to go with the flow. It's their work and it's about them and what they want to do. You know, this thing about cultural awareness and cultural competencies, I didn't realize it when I first, as a South Indian, moved to North India. I actually didn't know how to deal with the cultural difference that was there. And I didn't realize that I was actually struggling with the cultural change. I didn't realize it. And I knew within me there were so many biases. I had to recognize it. Only then could I come out of it. And only then could I sufficiently help people. You know, and that was such a journey for me. So I put it out here because we may go into communities so much desiring to help. But then we must be aware that, you know, this is my background, this is the way I think. It's not the same for them. So it's a process of learning to listen and like we say in T4L, of listening to understand. But even with a new culture, listening to understand. And listening not to correct and to pick faults. Because interculturally, you know, we rightly so, we're very, very proud of our cultures. And it's important to be proud of our cultures. On one of my very first international flights, I was seated next to a 70-year-old gentleman who was one of the very first Indians to move out to the UK as a computer engineer. So he was telling me about the first computer, how big it was, and it was really fascinating. So then he told me, but now you're just visiting. Remember one thing, no culture is superior to another culture. Your culture is not superior to another culture. Their culture is not superior to yours. So keep that balance as you interact with different cultures. Be respectful of each other, but be proud of yours also. Don't think that yours is much lesser. Okay, so that was something really beautiful. And as we work with communities, As you work cross-culturally, we don't realize how cross-cultural it is. Even North Kerala is so different from South Kerala, isn't it? Yeah, I come from North Kerala. My husband is from Trivandrum. There's so many differences. We think we are both from Kerala. It should be the same, but it's not. There are so many subcultures. And so be mindful of that, because I thought, coming to Wayanad is North Kerala, but I noticed, there are things that are different in Wayanad. I can't just imagine that, my culture is the same. So keep that in mind. And in terms of cultures, it's important to be aware that each religion also creates its own subculture. Muslim Keralites, Christian Keralites, Hindu Keralites, they all have their own subcultures. It's so important to just have that awareness and be mindful of it as you start to work with them to mobilize them. So as part of culture, now yesterday Sunny Uncle had also mentioned pre-traumatic situations. In a situation of collective trauma, we must also remember that relationships, within the community, they've had some relationship before. So, with the context of systemic trauma that I've worked in, there have been, some people who were more powerful or expressed their power, and that was the way it was. Now, in a situation of some event, they're not in that power anymore. But the people still view them that way, and they still think of themselves that way. So there's these dynamics that are there that you must listen out for, watch out for, because those can really hinder or slow down many processes. So we need to really watch out for those when we start to work with another culture. Yeah, another thing that I realized, things that we find very ordinary in our cultures may be totally alien to another culture. One example of this is when I started to work with gender sensitivity. I was trying to make a point with communities that, man and woman, they are equal. It's not that the woman is lesser and the man is higher. They're equal, and both have their roles, both are equal. So in my mind, the example was of, salt shaker and pepper shaker. You need them both. They're different, absolutely different, but you need them both. But to my rural UP community, salt and pepper shaker doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. So I had to search for things that would make sense to them. And one of the good things that I found was, how you make a chapati? There's the flat surface and there's the roller. Yeah? So you need them both. Without that, you can't make a chapati, right? So that turned out to be the culturally appropriate way of communicating that matter. So we really need to search for it. We need to understand, my great idea may be an absolute flop, have that cultural humility, and understand that they have a different culture, they have different things, they have different ways of functioning, and that's fine, that's perfect. Yeah, so this is just, I implement projects. I can't do without a slide like this. So it's just part of the game, understanding that, there are different processes and different steps. I'll skip this for us now. But understand that, that as we start to work with communities, there are a lot of challenges and limitations. Like I said earlier, without creating a adequately safe space, you may not be able to get that feeling of trust and confidentiality that may hamper your work, but try to pick it up early. Try to pick it up early if you feel that there's some breach happening or some difficulties that they are facing and they're unable to open up. Cultural and culture we talked about. Language barriers are also serious barriers, but these can be easily overcome. Diversity, each person's issues and concerns may be different. Each person's experiences are different, so that's something that would be important to identify, and this also happens through listening. Be needing to, conflict between two people sitting together, it's actually a very real problem. I know in communities when I would try to get them together, there's this ongoing feud between this family and that family, and they can't sit together in a common group. So how do you deal with that? It's a separate sort of dealing that has to happen. In a situation such as collective trauma, these recollecting such events can be very triggering negative emotions for people. And so we need to be sensitive about the timing. We shouldn't attempt any of this too early. Like even as I listened to the survivors, I thought it's not, they need to process their journey adequately. And when they are ready to recover, when they are ready to move forward, there we come in with ways to help them go forward. Okay? Many times we have limited resources, we have facilitators who may not have adequate training, and so many times the participants may not want to participate. So these are all challenges and limitations that are possible. But the underlying thing is this, about creating hope. And the whole purpose of using art here is to create hope. When I look at this picture that I'm there, I sort of feel so much hopeful. And as we talked at the beginning of this session, there's so much of an inspiration, so much of a hope that comes when we look at a beautiful piece of art, when we look at something. So for us survivors, what we want to see is the emergence of hope. And art as a tool to unify them and to create a sense of hope among them. So that's what we are intending to do with art as a healing ritual. That in spite of, or perhaps precisely because of the tragedy that surrounds us, we must not lose sight of what matters and what moves us, what transforms us, and what heals us. We know we must, as we process the events that have happened, we shouldn't stay there, and we must keep in our minds that we have to move on and we have to go forward. So that is something that art really communicates to participants and to the survivors, and it's something that can really bring a lot of hope. I love this picture of the sunflower growing in this terrible environment, and it's a picture of possibilities. Certainly, this has been a nightmarish time for this region. But then it's also an extraordinary time. We heard the stories of the fire rescue person yesterday. Oh, what an extraordinary time it has been to. There's been a lot of tragedy. There's been a lot of loss of lives. But there's been so many lives that were saved as well. And that's something to really celebrate. And the thing is, we have to have them both. Having the tragedy that has happened and the hope for the future, holding them together. And art, actually, a picture like this gives exactly that image of, it's there together. The ground is still dry. It is still difficult, but still something beautiful is emerging out of it. So that's the hope. That's the emotion that art can actually evoke. So this is the scientific part of my session. Now we will move on into something a little more personal, okay? Because it's one thing to hear about what you can do with the community, but it's something to experience it yourself. So I really hope that we can actually journey through a short time. We don't have a lot of time. Or do we have a lot of time? Time? That's very dangerous, Okiji. I think you all have your vehicles booked to go back, so we have to. Yeah. So, my thing is, I want to make this a case for creative expression. Okay? Oh, I'll tell. We're coming to that. So you'll have to continue to listen to me for a few minutes before we get into that. Yeah. Okay, so this is actually one session that I work with people to encourage them to care for their souls, especially for us. We're so busy caring for others. We're always caring for others, and not just about doctors and nurses, but we keep caring for our children, we care for our spouses. We are always giving, and there's this time in which we have to stop and look at ourselves. And it's not selfish to care for yourself. It's not selfish to care for yourself. It's something you need to care for yourself as well. And we do care for ourselves. Like, okay, if we brush our teeth, we are caring for our teeth, isn't it? That's why we brush our teeth. So same way for our soul is so much more important. And so we really need to care for the person that I am. And one of the ways of caring for such a person is, for myself, is to be creative in expression. So I am not who I am until I express myself. Otherwise, I am always hidden, right? So we often we neglect this very important aspect of our own selves, that we, besides our bodies, the person that I am, I have to care for it, and it must become a priority. Otherwise, you will find that the person that you are slowly dwindling away. So while we help others, the Beatitudes in the Bible is a big lesson in how we care for others. At the same time, we also must have boundaries that protect ourselves. Otherwise, we will not be able to care for others adequately. If you're not caring for yourself, at some point you will lose yourself, and then you will not be able to do the things for others that you so much desire to do. So, in a group like this, as we do a session on expressing ourselves creatively, the basic ground rule is it's a safe space. We accept that we are all diverse. All of us may not be artists, all of us may not be singers, but there is some creative outlet within you that is something that God has put inside you, that is an expression of art. Okay, in each and every one of us there is. I have no doubt about it. So this, I know we are here as a temporary group. I often use this for groups that are journeying together for a season, but this is a temporary group. But even in this temporariness, let this be a time of growth and where we can affirm each other. So the artwork that we are doing, I'd like to, let's think that, we'll be in small groups. Okay, there's two there, two or three, in small groups of 2 and 3. After we finish what we are doing, we show it to each other and talk about it. Okay, is that all right? Yeah? So two or three, okay, you can decide amongst yourselves. So as we do this, remember, again reminding you, we are not going to be critical. We won't, even in a jovial mode, we won't make fun of anything. But we will be looking at each other's and appreciating each other's in order to understand that person, okay? And through this, we grow together. Yes? Pardon? I'll come to that. Okay, so, I know you're all excited about what you're going to start. I can see the energy in the room. There's a lot of buzz happening. Okay. Silent buzz. Okay, so, but you see, this whole process is important to each of us, we all desire wholeness in our life, right? We want wholesomeness in our relationships. We really so deeply desire that. We want peace, we want balance, we want harmony. And we want harmony with God, we want harmony with each other, with our family. We just so deeply desire it. But what about harmony with ourselves, So this activity that you're about to do is about yourself. It's about coming in harmony with yourself, releasing yourself. And then the group that is around you, a harmony amongst you. And you will find that as you grow forward. Because, all the stress and all the trauma that we go through. Yesterday we all acknowledged, even though we might not have been in a collective trauma situation, we all have experienced some sort of trauma. It's not about the adversity, it's not about that event, but our response to that event. And many times we've had we've had responses that have been, you know, that have made us feel very pained, very hurt, very troubled. But you realize that it's something that, by holding on to it, it's something that you are, you're doing a deep violence to your own soul. Just think about that for a moment. Each of the hurts that you hold, the adverse event has moved on, maybe, that person has moved on, but the hurt that you feel is actually damaging yourself. And it's time to, you know, let it go, because it's of no significance to anybody else other than you. So if I need to move on, I need to let go of it. I need to realize the effect of that violence on me, and I need to move forward. And that journey is actually the process in which you discover yourself. And the truth is this: each of you are unique, you are special, and you are creative. I have no doubt each of you has an element of creativity within you that given the right environment will certainly come out. Okay, and you are unique. There is nobody on the planet who is like you, and there is nobody on the planet who can replace you. Okay, that is an affirmation that we must carry in our hearts as we step into this. You'll find that you will be able to connect with your passions and you know, find some sort of a purpose when you engage in something like this. So it's a question here for you before you start to do your artwork. What stops you from being creative? Let's just spend a short time on this. Many times, I don't know how many of us have that sense of freedom to create. Do you feel restricted about it? What stops you from being creative? Now, I give you a piece of paper. Suddenly you must be thinking, oh, I don't know how to draw. What can I draw? What if she asked me to draw a beautiful horse and I don't know how to draw a horse? How many of you were, you know, along those lines? Maybe not a horse, but yeah, you have some sort of things that limit you, that, yeah. Do you? Or no? Or you're super confident? No? Yeah, something like that, right? There's this, we have those, you know, fears within us, fears of criticism. What will my neighbors say? My horse looks like a dog. Yeah, you know, so we have those fears because we are constantly, you know, comparing ourselves to each other. We are really always, I mean, unless we consciously stop, it's there. And our communities, our cultures also put us into this comparison mode without us realizing. And we put our children also into this comparison mode. I'm happy to see that nowadays we're breaking out of it quite a bit because we realized it's a pointless journey. But when it comes to ourselves, we have all these fears within us. Fears of criticism, fears that it'll be an absolute failure, not being good enough. We may have, you know, this deep feeling of rejection. You may so much want your neighbor to appreciate your horse, but she doesn't. And then you feel rejected. You know, these are some of those, you know, things that do happen daily as we endeavor to express ourselves and be ourselves. And it's really very, very deep, actually. And negative, somebody who, you know, maybe there'll be somebody in your family who always has a negative voice. And you may, you know, constantly have been hearing that. And so you're so used to thinking negatively about something. Like you said, there's this idealism in us, you know, we want it to be perfect. So then we're striving towards that and it's not. And so then we hide what we've done because it's not perfect enough. You know, so many, there are those things that are there. If you begin to identify it, you can get out of it. Culturally, in our culture also, we've got so many cultural factors like what I talked about, arts and science. Culturally, we are geared towards one way. We think less about something, more about something. So those are some aspects that restrain us. Sometimes we just don't have enough time. We just don't really have enough time. There are too many things distracting us. We don't have the resources. We don't have the knowledge. We may want to be, you know, a great musician, but there's nowhere I can learn that from. You know, all these things are there. But in spite of it, there's an opportunity to grow and become something. And forms of creativity are many. It's not just, you know, drawing. There are all these things that I put up are different forms of creativity. And we must be able to appreciate that creative person within us who may not be able to draw or sing, but you may be so creative in the way in which you function as an administrator. You may be so creative in the way you have visions for the future, and are able to create projects and plans and dream for your community. All those are expressions of creativity, and don't belittle any of those. Those are all creative expressions, and you need to identify them and continue to grow in them so that you can be the person that you are meant to be. Okay, so I just wanted to share with you this. So here I'm just opening myself up here. I'm being vulnerable right at this point. Last year about this time, I realized I had breast cancer. And I was at home. My husband was not there when I was having a nice oil bath and did a self-examination, and I found a lump on myself. And 2 weeks, my husband was out for 2 weeks. I was waiting for him to come back so that we could get this evaluated. At the same time, I had a song recording scheduled exactly at the end of 2 weeks, and I was working towards that. And I didn't want this to disturb me, but nevertheless, it was something so serious. So there was that unknown period in which I know there is something seriously wrong as a doctor. I know that it is, clinically I knew that it was wrong. I was, looking at, weighing my life, how long, what could this mean in terms of my life and my dreams for my life. I, felt I was, staring at the face of death at that season. But, through it all, I can say that that was a season in which I walked a journey of deep spirituality, and I really understood many things about myself and my faith and what life is all about through that short season actually. And I was able to express that as a song. And each section of that song actually has something deeply meaningful for me. And it was actually healing my soul and healing my anxieties, healing my fears, healing my worry. It was something that I feel God gave to me that season for me to journey through that. So that is something I just want to say. Now, okay, you'll be curious what happened. Yeah, I'm fine now. I underwent all my treatment. It was an early stage, so I underwent all my treatment, and I'm standing before you completely well. And I praise God for that. I'm really thankful for this season of my life that I feel I've received. Yeah, so that's a little bit about myself, and just a way to say that this can be deeply transforming when you have something that you're uncertain of, but when you're in sync with yourself, when you're caring for your soul and it's mattering to you, things can be very, very different. Okay, so now we come to the part that you're all waiting for. How long has it been since you've expressed yourself creatively? When was the last time you did this? Where somebody has called you to be creative, called you to do something. Huh? It's been a long time. Yeah, it's been a very long time, I'm sure. Because it's not part of our usual way of functioning, to call each other to be creative. Yeah, so you have 10 minutes now. I want you, this can be about anything for yourself. Let's say now yesterday we went through a very troubling day. Maybe you can express, it doesn't have to be a drawing. It can be prose, it can be poetry, it can be just a few words, or it can be, some abstract art, but something that, that you feel is happening inside you and you want to capture it. Okay, is that okay? Were you all listening to me, or were you distracted? Yeah, I think you were all distracted. Okay, we'll wait for this to settle down. Okay, so the task is this. Each of you are seated as pairs or as groups of 3. You have 10 minutes starting now for yourself to express yourself on that piece of paper using crayons or a pen or whatever. Just, it doesn't have to be a drawing, or it can be a drawing. It can be just a few words, it can be just one word, but it should represent something about you and what you felt listening to what happened, the events of yesterday. Just something. So, as you finish that, you can share with your neighbor about, you can describe it to your neighbor. And take enough time to describe it to each other because it's expression. My point here is that I want you to be comfortable about expressing yourself, what's happening deep inside you, to be able to express it, okay? So that's what this thing is about. Is that clear? Any doubts? Yeah? Because we all experienced something quite heavy yesterday. And what did it really do to you? Okay, so we can, I'm sure you haven't finished, but we can start to tell our neighbors what we are drawing and begin to express ourselves to our neighbor. And I'd encourage you to continue to work on this. I mean, keep it with you, and we have time till the end of the conference. There's the break time to complete what you have in mind. So you can continue with that, but I think we have some constraints of time. So just 5 minutes to, you won't need 5 minutes, I'm sure. It'll be, but I'm giving you 5 minutes just to talk to the person next to you and just describe what this picture means or what this word means. What were your feelings as you were creating this bit of work? And just describe it. Okay, so we need to wind up now. How did you find this experience? Huh? You want 2 more minutes? Huh? Okay, 2 more minutes. So, I mean, if you've completed, well and good. If not, that's also fine. Yeah, yeah. You keep going ahead. And some are still sharing their experience with their person next to them. So all of us organizers, we really want to see your piece of creation, and I'd encourage you to take a picture and put it on the WhatsApp group. It's a safe space. Feel brave about it. There's not going to be any criticism. It's your expression, and this can be a step to how we grow as a T4L community of being able to share something that's imperfect about ourselves. Right? Yeah, so yeah, I'd encourage you to put it on the group. I want to see all of your artwork. I really want to, and I would be so thrilled to see what you've created. I'm also thrilled to see the buzz that is happening as you talk to each other, and yeah, and share something about what you've done. Yeah. Okay, so with this, I end this session. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for your time. I forgot to say that the song that I wrote last year, this time, by the end of this month, I should release it, and it will be available, and Eva will probably be able to send a link to you. Oh, it's okay. Thank you so much. Thank you very much. It's okay. It's okay. I'll save your suspense for later.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sunita, for that session on art and healing. I think we really needed it after the heaviness of yesterday's sessions. I think this was such a refreshing session for us. I also want to let you know that Dr. Sunita is a really good singer. Some of her songs have been uploaded on her YouTube channel. You can check them out. She has an album as well in her name. Yeah, we'll...
Check. On YouTube, my channel is Dr. Sunita Verghese. If you look up Dr. Sunita Verghese songs, you'll probably stumble into it. Or we can send a link in the group at some point. Yeah. Okay.
So it's been a delight to have someone as creative as her to actually come and lead a session on creativity and art and healing. And she's been truly walking that talk, and it's such a pleasure to have had you. Can I invite Peter, who's come all the way from Malaysia to attend our session, to hand over the token of our appreciation to you.
Next, we will listen to a survivor story. We have in our midst Preeta and Suresh, who have consented to come to us. They are a bit pressed for time because they are rebuilding their lives, and they have to go to an office to submit a project proposal. But then they have made time to spend, to come and be with us for some time. So, ഈ സമയത്ത് പ്രീതയും സുരേഷിനെയും അവരുടെ ജീവിതം നമ്മുടെ നടുവിൽ പങ്കുവെക്കുവാൻ അവർക്ക് തിരക്കുണ്ട്, അത്യാവശ്യമായിട്ട് ഒരിടത്ത് എത്തേണ്ടതാണ്. എന്നാൽ അവർ സമയമെടുത്ത് അവർ വന്നു, അവരുടെ ജീവിതം നമ്മളോട് പങ്കുവെക്കുന്നതായിരിക്കും.
കുഴപ്പമൊന്നുമില്ല. ഇല്ല, ഏട്ടൻ പറഞ്ഞോളൂ.
ഗുഡ് മോർണിംഗ്.
Good morning.
എന്താ പറയാന്ന് അറിയില്ല.
Don't know what to share here.
എൻ്റെ പേര് സുരേഷ്.
My name is Suresh.
എൻ്റെ ഭാര്യ പ്രീത.
This is my wife Preeta.
ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് 3 പെൺമക്കളാണ്.
We have 3 daughters.
മൂത്ത മകൾ അനുശ്രീ, രണ്ടാമത്തെ മകൾ ഭാഗ്യശ്രീ, ചെറിയ മകള് ദേവശ്രീ.
We have 3 daughters. The eldest one is Anusri. The second daughter is Bhagyasri. And the little one is Divyasri.
മൂത്ത മകള് സോഫ്റ്റ്വെയർ എഞ്ചിനീയറാണ്.
The eldest daughter is a software engineer.
അവൾ ട്രെയിനിങ് കഴിഞ്ഞ് ജോലിക്ക് കയറാൻ നിൽക്കുകയായിരുന്നു ഈ ഓഗസ്റ്റ് 1-ന്.
She had completed her training and she was waiting to join her job on August 1st.
അങ്ങനെ ഇരിക്കുമ്പോഴാണ് ജൂലൈ 30-ന് ഞങ്ങളുടെ കുടുംബത്തിലെ ഏറ്റവും വലിയ ദുരന്തം ഞങ്ങളെ തേടിയെത്തിയത്.
It was when we were waiting for that to happen, for her to join her work, that the greatest disaster came searching for our family.
10-20 വർഷം സമ്പാദിച്ച് എല്ലാ സ്വരുക്കൂട്ടി വെച്ച സമ്പാദ്യം കൊണ്ട് ചെറിയ വീട് വെച്ചു. മക്കളെ നല്ല രീതിയിൽ പഠിപ്പിച്ച് അവർക്കൊരു ചെറുതെങ്കിലും ഒരു ജോലി നേടിക്കൊടുക്കുക എന്നായിരുന്നു ഞങ്ങളുടെ ലക്ഷ്യം. ഞങ്ങൾ ടൈലറിങ് വർക്ക് ചെയ്താണ് കുടുംബം പോറ്റിയിരുന്നത്.
We were working as tailors. We saved all the money that we could in 20 years. And with all that, we built a little house for ourselves. We focused on our children's education. And we wanted them to get a job, an employment for themselves. It could be a small job, but we wanted our daughters to have some employment.
3 പേരും പഠിക്കാൻ നല്ല മിടുക്കികളായിരുന്നു.
All the 3 daughters were excellent in their studies.
രണ്ടാമത്തെ മകൾ ഭാഗ്യശ്രീ, അവൾ SLCക്ക് ഫുൾ A+ വാങ്ങി, +2-നും ഫുൾ A+ വാങ്ങിയിട്ടാണ് പാസ്സായത്.
Second daughter Bhagyasri, she got full A+ both for her 10th and also for her 12th board exams.
ഇപ്പോൾ ഡിഗ്രി സെക്കൻഡ് ഇയർ പഠിക്കുകയാണ്.
She is studying degree second year.
അതുപോലെ തന്നെ ചെറിയ മകൾ ദേവശ്രീ 10ാം ക്ലാസ്സിൽ നവോദയ സ്കൂളിലാണ് പഠിക്കുന്നത്.
The youngest daughter Divyasri is studying her 10th standard in Navodaya school.
ഇവർ രണ്ടുപേരും ഹോസ്റ്റലിൽ നിന്ന് പഠിക്കുന്നതുകൊണ്ട് 50 ദിവസം അവർ വീട്ടിലുണ്ടായിട്ടില്ല.
Because these two were studying and living in a hostel as part of their studies, so on the day of that event they were not there in the home.
അങ്ങനെ സന്തോഷമായി കഴിഞ്ഞ ഞങ്ങളുടെ കുടുംബത്തിൽ ജൂലൈ 30-ന് ആ മഹാദുരന്തം വന്നപ്പോൾ ഞങ്ങൾ 3 പേരും ഉരുൾപൊട്ടി ഒരു 100 മീറ്ററോളം ഒഴുകിപ്പോയി.
And we were living our happy life, and 3 of us were there in our home. And on the day that disaster struck, the house was hit by the landslide, and all the 3 of us were washed away for about some 100 meters.
രാത്രി 1 മണിക്ക് ശേഷമാണ് സംഭവിക്കുന്നത്. നല്ല മഴയും ഉള്ളത് കാരണം കറണ്ടൊന്നും ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല.
It happened during the night around 1 p.m. It was raining very heavily. We didn't have the power supply.
നല്ല മഴയായത് കാരണം കൊണ്ട് ഞങ്ങൾ 3 പേരും ഒരു റൂമിലാണ് കിടന്നിരുന്നത് അന്ന് രാത്രി.
Because it was raining so heavily, all the 3 of us were sleeping in one room.
ഏകദേശം 1 മണി കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ മോൾ ഉണർന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു, അച്ഛാ എന്തൊരു സൗണ്ട് കേൾക്കുന്നുണ്ട് എന്ന്. ആ സമയത്ത് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ ദേഹത്തുനിന്ന് പുതപ്പ് ഇങ്ങനെ മാറ്റുന്ന ഒരു ടൈമേ എനിക്ക് കിട്ടിയിരുന്നുള്ളൂ. അപ്പോഴത്തേക്കും നമ്മളെ വീടും എല്ലാം ഞങ്ങളടക്കം ഒഴുകിപ്പോയി, ഉരുൾ വന്നടിച്ച് ഒഴുകിപ്പോയി.
About 1 p.m. my daughter woke us and said, Appa, I'm hearing some sound. And I hardly got the time to move the bedsheet from over my body. In that short time, our house and all of us were just washed away in the landslide.
ഞങ്ങൾ ഏകദേശം ഒരു 100 മീറ്ററോളം ഒഴുകിപ്പോയി. ഞാൻ എന്തിലോ തടഞ്ഞു നിന്നവിടെ.
All the three of us were washed about some 100 meters. I just got stuck somewhere.
ഞാൻ കുറേ ഭാര്യനെയും മോളെയും മാറി മാറി വിളിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്.
And I am calling my wife and my child, taking turns and calling out their names.
പക്ഷേ ഇവരാരും വിളി കേൾക്കുന്നില്ല.
They are not responding.
എന്താണ് സംഭവിച്ചതെന്ന് അറിയുന്നില്ല. വീട് ഇടിഞ്ഞൊളിഞ്ഞ് വീണതാണോ ഒന്നും മനസ്സിലാവുന്നില്ല ആ സമയത്ത്.
They are not responding. I am not understanding what has happened. Has our house collapsed or did it collapse by itself? No clue of what has happened.
കുറേ കഴിഞ്ഞ് ഞാൻ പകച്ചിങ്ങനെ മഴയും കൊണ്ട് നിങ്ങൾക്ക് മൊത്തത്തിൽ ചെളിയായിരുന്നു. കണ്ണിലും മൂക്കിലും വായിലും ശരീരമാസകലം മുറിവുകളും ചെളിയുമായിരുന്നു. ഞാൻ മാറി മാറി വിളിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്, ഭാര്യയും വിളിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്, മോളെയും വിളിക്കുന്നുണ്ട്. പക്ഷേ ഇവർ വിളി കേൾക്കുന്നില്ല. അവസാനം ഭാര്യയുടെ കരച്ചിൽ കേട്ട ഭാഗത്തേക്ക് ഞാൻ നീങ്ങിപ്പോയി ഭാര്യയെ ചളിയിൽ നിന്ന് വലിച്ചെടുത്തു.
My body was fully covered in dirt, eyes, mouth, nose, all filled with dirt. Body had wounds and bruises. But still I kept calling out their names. After some time I could hear my wife crying and I walked towards the place where I heard the voice and pulled her out from the slush.
അതിനുശേഷം കുറേ നേരം അവിടെ നിന്നു. കുറച്ച് മഴയൊക്കെ കൊണ്ട് അവിടെ നിന്നതിന് ശേഷം ഞങ്ങളുടെ വീടിൻ്റെ കുറച്ച് മേൽഭാഗത്ത് 2-3 വീടുണ്ട്. അവിടെ നിന്ന് ടോർച്ചിൻ്റെ വെട്ടം കണ്ടിട്ട് ഞങ്ങൾ അത് ലക്ഷ്യമാക്കിയിട്ട് ചളിയിൽ കൂടെ നടന്നു പോയി. മോളെ വിളിച്ചിട്ടൊന്നും കിട്ടിയില്ല. അവസാനം ഞങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞു ഞങ്ങൾ മോളെ തിരഞ്ഞു നോക്കട്ടെ, ഒരു ടോർച്ചോ വെളിച്ചോ എന്തെങ്കിലും തരണം ഞങ്ങൾക്ക്, ഞങ്ങൾ മോളെ ഒന്ന് നോക്കട്ടെ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. പക്ഷെ അവർ സമ്മതിച്ചില്ല. കാരണം ഇവിടെ കൈ വിരലറ്റ് പോയിട്ട് സർജറി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അപ്പോൾ അത് വിരലറ്റ് പോയി ഈ സംഭവത്തിൽ. അപ്പോൾ ബ്ലഡിൽ മൊത്തം ബ്ലഡാണ് ദേഹത്ത് മുഴുവൻ. അതുകൊണ്ട് അവർ സമ്മതിച്ചില്ല പോകാൻ. ഞങ്ങൾ പോയി നോക്കിക്കോളാം, നിങ്ങളിവിടെ റെസ്റ്റ് എടുക്കുന്ന പറഞ്ഞിട്ട് അവർ പോയി.
We tried to stay there for some time till the rains subsided a bit. Then we saw a few houses that was above our house. We saw some flashlights being used there. So we walked towards it. We are calling our daughter's name. And then after reaching there, we wanted to go and rescue our daughter. But wife's finger was cut off, or it got cut off in that accident, in that event. And she was drenched in blood. So they stopped us from going, said, you take rest, you can't go because you are badly wounded, you are bleeding. So they said they will go and do the rescue work. So we could not go and look out for our daughter.
അതിനുശേഷം ഞങ്ങൾ മൊത്തം ബോഡിയൊക്കെ ക്ലീൻ ചെയ്തു. ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് ഇട്ട വസ്ത്രം പോലും അന്നുണ്ടായിരുന്നില്ല, ചളിയോടുകൂടിയാണ് കയറി വന്നത്.
So we cleaned ourselves and even the dress that we were wearing, we lost that because it was totally damaged in that event.
അങ്ങനെ ഞങ്ങൾ ഫ്രഷായി കുറച്ച് നേരം അവിടെ ഇരുന്ന് അവർ മോളെ തിരയാനായിട്ട് താഴേക്ക് ഇറങ്ങി പോകുന്ന സമയത്താണ് രണ്ടാമത്തെ ഉരുൾപൊട്ടൽ വരുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ ആ വീട്ടിലിരുന്ന എല്ലാവരും 4 വഴിക്കായിട്ട് ഓടി. എന്താ സംഭവിക്കാമെന്നറിയാത്തതുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ ആ വഴിക്ക് ഓടി. ഞാനിവിടെ കയ്യും പിടിച്ച് ഞാൻ കാട്ടിലൂടെ ഓടി. അങ്ങനെ ആ കാട്ടിൻ്റെ മുകളിൽ ഒരു കുന്നിൻ്റെ മുകളിൽ കയറി അവിടെ നേരം വെളുക്കുവോളം മഴയത്ത് നിന്നു ഞങ്ങൾ.
And as we had freshened up, we changed into new clothes and people were going out, setting out for the rescue operation. That the second landslide happened and everyone who were there, the few people who were there, ran in 4 different directions. I caught her hand and both of us also escaped, running for our lives. And then we went to a hilltop and spent the whole night in the rains on that night.
4-5 മണിക്കൂർ മഴയും കൊണ്ട് അവിടെ നിന്നതിന് ശേഷം രാവിലെ 6 മണിയാകാൻ നേരത്ത് കാണുമ്പോഴാണ് ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് സംഭവം എന്താണെന്ന് മനസ്സിലാവുന്നത്. മൊത്തം ഉരുൾപൊട്ടി ചളിയും പാറയും മണ്ണും വന്നടിഞ്ഞ് നമ്മളെ വീടൊന്നും അവിടെ ഇല്ലായിരുന്നു, മൊത്തം നിരന്ന് കിടക്കുകയായിരുന്നു. അങ്ങനെ ഞങ്ങൾ ജനവാസ കേന്ദ്രത്തിലേക്ക് ഇറങ്ങിച്ചെന്നപ്പോൾ അവരോട് കാര്യങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞു. ഞങ്ങളെ മോളിങ്ങനെ മിസ്സായിട്ടുണ്ട്, ഞങ്ങൾക്കൊന്ന് പോയി നോക്കണം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. പക്ഷേ ഞങ്ങളെ ദേഹത്ത് മുറിവുകളും ബ്ലഡും ഒക്കെ ഉള്ളതുകൊണ്ട് അവർ ഞങ്ങളെ അങ്ങോട്ടേക്ക് വിട്ടില്ല. അവർ നേരെ ഞങ്ങളെ വിംസ് ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിലേക്കാണ് കൊണ്ടുപോയത്.
So then it was only early in the morning as the sun rose that we could see what had actually happened, that the whole area that we lived in, the place that we lived in, our home, all those areas are just washed off. And that is when we actually realized what had happened to us that night. Then in the morning we went to a place where people were gathered. We went there and informed them that our daughter is missing. and we would like to go and search for her, but they said, no, you are wounded, you cannot go, we will do that, and they were taken to the Wims Hospital for getting medical treatment.
അപ്പോഴും ഞങ്ങൾക്കൊരു പ്രതീക്ഷ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു, ഞങ്ങളെ മോള് ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് പറ്റിയ പോലെ എന്തെങ്കിലും അപകടം സംഭവിച്ച് ഏതെങ്കിലും ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിലോ ആരുടെയെങ്കിലും അടുത്ത് ഉണ്ടാവും എന്നൊരു പ്രതീക്ഷ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് അപ്പോഴും ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു.
So we were very hopeful that just as we survived, our daughter will also survive. She would be taking some treatment in some hospital, or she would be with some people, and she will be safe. We were very hopeful even at that point of time.
അതിനുശേഷം 2 ദിവസം കഴിഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് വിവരം കിട്ടി, ഞങ്ങളെ മോള് എന്നേക്കുമായി ഞങ്ങളെ വിട്ട് പോയി എന്നുള്ളത്.
After 2 days, we got that sad news that our daughter has left us forever.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. ഒട്ടും എളുപ്പമല്ല ഈ ഒരു കാര്യം ചെയ്യുക എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്, പക്ഷേ ഞങ്ങളുടെ ഇടയിൽ വരിക, നിങ്ങളുടെ മനസ്സ് തുറക്കാൻ കാണിച്ച സന്മനസ്സിനായിട്ട് നന്ദി അറിയിക്കും. താങ്ക് യു. താങ്ക് യു സർ. എല്ലാവരും ഒന്ന് എഴുന്നേറ്റ് നിന്ന് നമുക്കൊന്ന് It's a very solemn occasion, and I literally don't have any words to say to what has been said. I just feel my own poverty in understanding what has happened here. Though I claim to work here in Wayanad, work in the community, but the poverty of my own knowledge and experience. And I'd like to thank them and thank each one of you for being part of this experience. It's a very solemn time, but we will take a break. We'll have a tea and then come back. തിരിച്ച് മടങ്ങി വരാം. ഹാളിലോട്ട് എല്ലാവർക്കും പ്രവേശിക്കാം. Friends, we are going to listen to another story. The story by Preeta and Suresh was indeed soul stirring. നമുക്ക് ആഴമായിട്ട് നമ്മളെ സ്വാധീനിച്ച കഥയാണ് പ്രീതയും സുരേഷും പങ്കുവെച്ചത്. അടുത്തത് നമ്മൾ കേൾക്കാൻ പോകുന്നത് മുഹമ്മദ് സനൂപിൻ്റെ വാക്കുകളാണ്. സനൂപ് ഇതുവരെ സംസാരിച്ചിട്ടില്ല, പരസ്യമായിട്ട് സംസാരിച്ചിട്ടില്ല. ഹീ ഈസ് നോട്ട് എ പബ്ലിക് സ്പീക്കർ. ഹീ ഈസ് ഗോയിങ് ടു സ്പീക്ക് ഇൻ എ പബ്ലിക് പ്ലേസ് ഫോർ ദ ഫസ്റ്റ് ടൈം. But the fact is, he is the first person who responded. The first ambulance to reach is Sanoop. So, അവിടെ ആദ്യമായിട്ട് എത്തിയ ആംബുലൻസ് ആണ് അത് പോയ ആളാണ് നമ്മളോടൊപ്പം തൻ്റെ അനുഭവം പങ്കുവെക്കുന്നത്. കരങ്ങളടിച്ച് നമ്മുടെ സ്നേഹിതനായിരിക്കുന്ന സനൂപിനെ വേദിയിലേക്ക് നയിക്കും.
ഹലോ, ഞാൻ സനൂപ്, മേപ്പാടി വ്യാപാരി വ്യവസായി ആംബുലൻസ് ഡ്രൈവറാണ്.
And my name is Sanoop. I am an ambulance driver with Mepadi. It's a merchants association. So merchants association have an ambulance service and I am the driver for them.
ഞാൻ അറിയുന്നത് ഒരു 2 മണിക്കാണ് കാര്യം അറിയുന്നത്.
I got the information or alert by about 2 p.m. in the night. 2 a.m. in the night.
അപ്പം തന്നെ ഉമ്മാൻ്റെ അടുത്തൊക്കെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞു. അപ്പോൾ ഉമ്മ പറഞ്ഞു ഒറ്റയ്ക്ക് പോകണ്ട, ഇതാണ് റിസ്ക് ആണെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞു കുഴപ്പമില്ല, എന്തായാലും നമ്മൾ പോകണം. കാര്യങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞ് മനസ്സിലാക്കി നേരെ വണ്ടി എടുത്തപ്പോൾ മൊത്തം ബ്ലോക്കായിരുന്നു റോഡ്. ഫയർഫോഴ്സ് വന്നു റോഡും കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ റെഡിയാക്കിയിട്ട് ഞാനും ഫയർഫോഴ്സുമാടെയാണ് ഫസ്റ്റ് അവിടെ എത്തുന്നത്.
So as I got the alert, I shared in my home and my mother said don't go alone, it will be risky. But then I told my mother that I will have to go, I will have to be there, and I started my journey. I could see a lot of blocks on the way and the fire services were also making the arrangements. So the fire services and we were the first people to reach there to rescue them.
അങ്ങനെ എത്തി. ഫസ്റ്റ് തന്നെ അങ്ങോട്ട് കടക്കാൻ പറ്റൂല, പാലത്തിൻ്റെ കുറേ ഇപ്പുറമാണ്. രണ്ടാമത്തെ പാലമാണ് പോയത്. ഫസ്റ്റ് ഇപ്പുറത്ത് നിന്ന് മൊത്തം ഫുൾ ചളിയും കാര്യങ്ങളായിരുന്നു. ഫസ്റ്റ് തന്നെ ഒരു കുട്ടീനെ കിട്ടി. നേരെ മൂപ്പൻസ് മെഡിക്കൽ കോളേജിലോട്ടാണ് കൊണ്ടുപോയത്. ഫസ്റ്റ് അവിടെ നിന്ന് തന്നെ നമ്മൾ ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിലോട്ട് ഫസ്റ്റ് പോകുമ്പോൾ തന്നെ നിർദ്ദേശം കൊടുത്തിരുന്നു, ഇങ്ങനെ കേസുകൾ വരാൻ ഇതുണ്ട്, അതുകൊണ്ടൊക്കെ സജ്ജീകരണങ്ങളൊക്കെ ചെയ്തിരിക്കണം എന്നൊക്കെ പറഞ്ഞിട്ട്.
So there are 2 bridges that we are talking about here. The second bridge had already collapsed. The first bridge was also filled with all dirt and mud because of the water or the landslide that had happened. And on my way, I crossed the first bridge and the first person I rescued was a child. And I took the child to the WIMS Medical College. The hospital had been alerted that such a disaster has happened and they were asked to, or they were ready with they were prepared to handle the eventualities.
അങ്ങനെ അവിടുന്ന് പോയി അപ്പോഴത്തിന് ബാക്കിയുള്ള ആംബുലൻസുകാർക്കൊക്കെ നിർദ്ദേശങ്ങൾ കൊടുത്തു, വാട്സപ്പിലും കാര്യങ്ങളിലൊക്കെ കൊടുത്തു. അപ്പോഴത്തിന് ബാക്കി എല്ലാവരും അറിഞ്ഞു. പിന്നെ എല്ലാവരും എത്തി. പിന്നെ അടുത്തതൊക്കെ കിട്ടുന്നത് ബോഡികളും തലയില്ലാത്തതും പിന്നെ കൈകളില്ലാത്തതും അങ്ങനത്തെ ഒക്കെ കിട്ടിയിരുന്നത്.
By that time, the alert had gone to all the WhatsApp groups for the ambulance drivers. So all of them started working. So I took my first rescued person to the hospital on the way back. Then after that, most of what I was dealing with were dead bodies without heads, bodies without limbs. And those were the services that I did.
പിന്നെ മരങ്ങളൊക്കെ അടിച്ചിട്ട് മൊത്തം തലയോട്ടി വരെ പൊളിഞ്ഞ് കിടക്കുന്നതും പിന്നെ മൊത്തം അധികം ഇല്ല, ഹാഫ് ഭാഗവും കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെയാണ് അധികം കിട്ടിയിട്ടുള്ളത്.
We had to take bodies of people, heads totally shattered such that even the brains had come out, or half of a body part. So these were that was how we had to do the service on that day.
പിന്നെ ആർമിക്കാർ വന്ന് പിന്നെ പാലം റെഡിയായതിൻ്റെ ശേഷമാണ് കുറേ അപ്പുറത്തുനിന്നും ഇപ്പുറത്തുനിന്നും ഒക്കെ ആളെ കിട്ടിയത്. പക്ഷേ കൂടുതൽ കിട്ടുന്നതൊക്കെ തലയോട്ടിൻ്റെ അവിടെയൊക്കെ നല്ല പരിക്കും പറ്റിയതൊക്കെയായിരുന്നു കിട്ടിയിരുന്നത്.
Then the army swung into action. They built the temporary bridge, and it was after that we could reach out to the other side and rescue bodies or people there. Most of the bodies that I saw had severe head injuries.
പിന്നെ 10 ദിവസം അവിടെ ഫുൾ കണ്ടിന്യൂ ആയിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. പിന്നെ
was
മെയിൻറ്റും കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ മാറിപ്പോയി മൊത്തത്തിൽ എന്താ എന്താ ഇതാണ്ടെന്നൊന്നും ഒരു പിടുത്തം കിട്ടാതായി പോയി മൊത്തത്തിൽ.
So I was there for nearly 10 days following the disaster. Life totally changed. I was totally engrossed there. I don't know what was happening or what we are doing, but we were totally engrossed in the work.
പിന്നെ ഓരോ ബോഡികൾ കിട്ടുന്നു, ഭയങ്കര സ്മെല്ലും കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ, അങ്ങനെ പിന്നെ അങ്ങനത്തെ ഓരോ പീസുകൾ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെയാണ് അങ്ങനെ കിട്ടുന്നത്.
Then later on we started getting bodies that were in a highly decomposed state. A lot of body parts also were collected.
Okay.
Thank you. തൻ്റെ സേവനത്തിനായിട്ട് നമുക്ക് എല്ലാവർക്കും എഴുന്നേറ്റ് നിന്ന് ഒന്ന് കരങ്ങളടിക്കാം. ഞങ്ങളുടെ സ്നേഹത്തിൻ്റെ പ്രതീകമായി ഡോക്ടർ കാമി ഒരു ഉപഹാരം തരുന്നു. ഇത് വെല്ലൂരിലെ ഒരു സമൂഹം, വേദനിക്കുന്ന ഒരു സമൂഹം ഉണ്ടാക്കുന്നതാണ്. അപ്പം കരങ്ങളടിച്ചു. താങ്ക് യു സനൂപ്, വന്ന് ആ അനുഭവങ്ങളൊക്കെ പങ്കുവച്ചതിൽ ദൈവം അനുഗ്രഹിക്കട്ടെ. Let us be grateful for the opportunity to listen to the experiences of Sanup, who happened to be the first person to reach there, the first ambulance driver to reach there.
So thank you, Sanup, for that. Next, we want to invite one of our favorite facilitators, Mrs. Valsa Augustine. She's a dedicated psychologist who began her career at CMC Vellore before joining the Shefflin Institute of Health Research and Leprosy at Karigiri. With a compassionate approach, she works closely with individuals affected by leprosy, helping them navigate psychological challenges and overcome the stigma associated with the disease. Mrs. Valsa is also actively engaged in training and in counseling, empowering her clients with the tools to build resilience and hope. Valsa is the trustee of Transform for Life and one of our dear facilitators. She has a gift of drawing people to share stories, setting them towards the path of healing. We look forward to your talk today, Valsanti. Round of applause for Valsanti. Check.
Yeah, good morning. I hope, do you all believe that the best is yet to come? So today is the best, not because I'm finishing, but because you all are going home with this. So it's over. And I hope you've forgotten Deepa, Johan, and Sunny Philip. So I would feel comfortable. I know I wish I was before them. Anyway, thank you all. So what is left after hearing all these people? Preeta and the ambulance driver, I forget his name, and the ones who shared yesterday. Is there anything left for us to take back from here? This is a winding up session. we'll see what we can take back. So, we'll do a bit of trauma-informed care, which Sunita has already covered. We'll just go through it since she has covered in different dimensions connected with art. We will look at this and then we are going to do some deep briefing because all of us have had a lot of heavy stories and we can't just go home without debriefing. So I'll take you through a session where it's going to be your session. So I'll quickly take you through what is trauma-informed care. Just forget the image, don't look at it now. Just want to ask you one question. What is the word that comes to you? Seated here for the last 3 days. What's the one word? Love. Hope. Resilience. Compassion. Why? What next? Healing. A word that starts with L. Love. Deepa already said love. Loss. We heard all about losses. So now look at the image. Go to the next slide. It can mean different things to different people. Can we connect this with the stories we've been hearing during the last 2 days? Disconnected, yes. Previous one. Disconnected. Then, what are the other words that would match this picture? Pardon? Damage. Thank you, Deepa. Hopeless. Okay, with some hope. Confusion. Determination. Stuck. Thank you. We'll move on to the next one. There is an attempt, we heard from the stories, efforts that were made. We kept hearing the word fear of death yesterday from people who shared. These were things that were happening. There were caregivers. There were also spectators. There were several attempts from both sides. Some communication, some successes, small steps succeeded. So we want to see this happening. May not be a perfect connecting bridge, because a loss is a loss, but do we want to see this? Of course, we all want to go back with the hope. Many of you said love and hope and determination. So where does trauma-informed care start? what is trauma-informed care? So what is the one thing that will help you if you find that the bridge you are walking is broken? Anyone want to answer? A small boat. Thank you, Sunny. Students? One thing that will help you. If we find ourselves in a situation like this, finding someone on the other side. Thank you. Possibilities. Yeah, T4L is all about finding somebody on the other side. Thank you. Looking for possibilities. Anything else? What is that one thing? Somebody throwing a rope. What is that one strength you will rely on difficult times? God? Prayer? Self-confidence? Thank you. Any more? A friend? What will you do if you see your friend standing on a broken bridge? Reach out, call out, send a boat. So we all have heard enough about what is trauma. Thank you. So we're just going to, all these days you've been hearing about what trauma is all about. But what is trauma-informed care? Is it just an approach? We'll come to that. Understanding trauma and responding, recognizing. So, it's a program, it could be an organization, it could be a person. We'll go into what Sunita had shared. We'll go into the 4 R's of trauma-informed care. We call it TIC. Realizing the impact of trauma. We understood more. On the first day, probably we didn't understand much about what all this is till we heard from the survivors. We understood the impact, and also we're trying to explore paths for recovery. We're also recognizing, as they shared, the signs and reactions of trauma in clients and families, staff, and others involved. So, sometimes recognition can be delayed, but it's never too late. And how do we respond? We know, we understand, then Sunita was mentioning about systemic trauma. How do we respond to the policies we have? Was the driver or the one who shared? The fire service provider said that he could not break the rule. He had to go straight, but he did break the rule and saved the person with the handicap. So sometimes systems can be traumatic and resist re-traumatization. We understand all these, but just to give a little bit of one or two examples how sometimes re-traumatization can happen. A couple had come on the first day. They had lost all the 3 children, a son and 2 daughters. They said one thing that's painful is that people keep asking, how could you lose all the 3 and you have survived? Couldn't you save one child? How do we answer? How do they answer? So there's a divide. That's why I wanted to show the bridge. The minute trauma happens, we become us and them. There is a divide between us, the providers, caregivers, and the ones who have suffered trauma. So, we may be doing this unconsciously, traumatizing the person who's already gone through it. How do we respond? The response of the community was painful for this couple. How, as if asking, why are you alive when all 3 have died? Recognizing the signs and reactions, sometimes we may miss out. We are quite empathetic people. We may miss out on certain signals that's coming out. Yeah, thank you. But it's never too late. I just want to use one case that we came across. It's about a child who was very disruptive in a class. And teachers were correcting her. And the child was very behaviorally very disturbed. And there were complaints to the hostel where she was staying. Finally, the hostel in charge brought her. The first 2 sessions, she was very quiet. She wouldn't talk. I couldn't get much out of her. She just did some games and did some pictures and went off. Subsequent sessions, she started opening up. She said, I'm angry with all my hostel mates. I'm angry with the workers. I don't like the teachers. So many things. So she said, I don't like studying. And then, to cut the story short, she had a history of recurrent sexual abuse. She is a destitute child, parents separated, and so she was in this hostel. And for holidays, she would go to her grandparents' home. And there, the neighbors, family, friends, anyone it was not just one person. And whenever she told her grandparents, they would ignore it. And she was also threatened that if she tells it out, her brother would be killed. So she would come back and she couldn't share. Slowly her scholastic performance started coming down. And then she was disrupting the class. She was very aggressive in the hostel and in the school. And then the recovery process started. So sometimes trauma response signals may not be very visible. Not all will be able to express, especially children. So, how do we go about with trauma-informed care? Though we have definitions in place, but TIC could be more than what it is defined as. It is a methodology, a system, but it's all about people. It's a way of being. Yesterday, I think some of you were having secondary trauma when I broke my mobile. So many of you responded. with empathy in different ways. And poor Sunita had to be woken up. And thank you all. But a trauma-informed care was what I experienced. I don't know, it was a planned one to make me go through it, to understand TIC. So, trauma-informed care, it can be simple, it can be complicated. It's not about weaknesses, it's about building our strengths. And it's not about control. Deepa was mentioning about that when we were talking. It's about comfort. The minute we think we are givers, caregivers, providers, we try to put ourselves on a high pedestal, and it comes like this. There's a control reflex. We're not planning with them, we are planning for them. It's all about our agenda. It's not about them. So we need to look outside the definition of TIC. It's about comfort, and not just symptoms. Don't look at them only as symptoms, but a way they are trying to adapt to the situation. I'm referring this from Maumita, who talked about the way she handles women, destitute women, their problems. So thank you to Ms. Kati. So again, Sunita mentioned about principles of trauma-informed care. It's about safety, physical, emotional. We talked about it. Trustworthiness and transparency. When this child with abuse was reported, we had to report to the police. So she had to go to the police station. She was called many times, and she could not open up and tell her story because she didn't feel it was safe. And so the person in charge had to go every time, accompany her, where she could feel a bit safe, because suddenly she felt threatened by all those people in the police station asking questions. And the trustworthiness and transparency. And this can affect the caregivers also. When I had to go as a witness, I had to give my report. And I was confronted by a woman constable asking me to take away one person's name in the report. It was more like a threat. Then when I went to the court as a witness, they tried asking questions in such a way that I would change. So here you see the challenges in the system if you are a caregiver. Finally, the persons who were involved were into the jail, but it's not always so straightforward. Sometimes many mothers, when they hear their child was abused by a father, they don't want to take it to the police because their lives are not going to be the same. When the father comes out, what would happen? So these are real fears. And how do we take trauma-informed care in these situations? Peer support. We know now the good thing is any trauma, there is a support group. Acid attack victims they run a kind of eatery place in Pune. How many of you know about it? They run a bakery. And IDEA is an organization where people affected by leprosy globally have come together to be advocates, to fight against the stigma. So there are many, many support groups. They kept talking about the gift they were giving. This is a small group of people who have survived leprosy. They are going on to the overcomer stage. They support each other, and they're self-supporting groups. So peer support is so very important in trauma-informed care. Collaboration and mutualities. Many of you would have heard about Banyan in Chennai, where they discuss the plans with the affected persons' families. I think it's the same concept in mental health center where families, it's a family-based care. It's never just the patient. Where is the voice of the person affected? Do we go on to empower them? Again, the rehab concept comes in, where we try to rehabilitate people. Dr. Agustin Koshi was telling, both of them were trying to see how they can rehabilitate the couple who shared this morning. They could not use the fridge which the government had given the couple who came this morning, because when they visited their house, they said, we can't use, because my daughter who died wanted to buy a fridge when she started earning. So they both visited them and slowly talked to them and said, won't your daughter be happy if you can use your fridge? So they started, and they said, what do we have to keep? So they went and bought something for them and enabled them to use the fridge. This is empowering them, giving them a choice. Are we just leaving them as beneficiaries of all our care, or are we helping them to move on? Sometimes it gives, many NGOs feel, as long as they are with us or under us, we feel good about it. Empowerment is a strong principle of trauma-informed care. Then, again, Sunita talked about cultural, historical, gender issues. All these have a strong impact on the way trauma-informed care is provided. Today morning, Deepa was talking about the tribal group in Andamans. People are not able to reach out to them. They're not willing to come out. But we don't understand how we can work with them. They still remain an isolated community. A lot of cultural barriers can be there in trauma-informed care. There are many stories we can, but time doesn't allow. We need to be sensitive. Many times we need to remind ourselves that trauma is beyond caste, religion, community, ethnic, whatever. It's beyond all that. Trauma is all about people. We could be on this side also. So why trauma-informed care? We want to create communities that can heal themselves. Just a small step has been started in Wayanad. It's going to continue with all your help. And we initiate, or we enable people to learn a culture of caring, understanding, and go on to training people who are potential caregivers. Some of you said the first person we would go to would be a friend. Are they trained to give care? They may be very sensitive, caring, but do they have the tools to give care? So, and to generate a collaborative approach. So at the end of the session, I'd like all of us to ask this question. Am I a trauma-informed care? Or is my organization trauma-informed care? What is AAA? We know AAA batteries. Always available adult. We are TIC. Each one of us here at TIC. We always depend on an organization to provide, but each one of us here are trauma-informed care. I just want to mention ACEs. What is ACE? Adverse Childhood Experience. Do you know that 2 in 3 children are exposed to trauma before they reach the age of 16? All these are from SAMHSA. SAMHSA is Substance Abuse Mental Health Services Authority. They have done exhaustive work in trauma-informed care. These are very traumatic that occur from 0 to 7 years. Students, these are some things that you can take back when you start counseling people. And it could be experiences of violence, both psychological and physical, sexual abuse and neglect. So, this is something we need to be conscious of when we are providing trauma-informed care, especially about children. There's another case study I'd like to share with you. We know that children cannot express much. Naveen, who's the child of Ramya, had come on the first day, and Naveen had lost his father and sister. The mother was expressive, but Naveen sat there with a smile. I believe when he was found, he was filled with mud inside the mouth, and they had to. But while he was being treated, he couldn't talk much. There was somebody else saying, "This is our son," and he could not respond. And later, he reached his mother. Now, Naveen doesn't talk much. He just sat there. He didn't express much. There's one child that was brought by her grandmother for our counseling. And I was asking where the parents are. She said mother will be coming, but they've come on a holiday from the US. They've come to visit the grandparents, and the grandmother noticed this child is withdrawn. She wasn't as bubbly as she used to be. So grandmother was little concerned, and she brought her. Of course, she had a dermatological condition where she had a little patch on her face. So the girl was very quiet. I just gave her some puzzles, and she started drawing. And after the drawing, I asked her to explain what it is. She had drawn a house and doorways on either side. There were 2 people, the stick pictures we all draw. So on either side, there were 2 here, 2 on the other side. So I was asking who they were. She said, one is my father and my younger brother, and this side was the mother and the child. She had drawn 2 other people, one a tall figure and a small figure. I asked who they were. She said, that's my teacher and that's me. She had drawn them very close to each other. And all the windows were not there. So I said, you don't have windows for your house, you haven't drawn. She said, no, I don't like. I always keep it closed in my house. Slowly she started enjoying talking about this drawing. Asked about her teacher. She said, my teacher, I love my teacher. I said, why? She doesn't ask much about my white patch. Then coming to the doorways either side, both were talking. I was asking why you've drawn your father and brother here and you both are here. My father doesn't like me, he likes only my brother. I'm close to my mother. Closing windows, what she was talking was that I'm scared of any noise, any fights, conflicts. So I go in and shut all my windows and I stay inside. She was living in fear. Children may not express, but later in adulthood, they take it out on their parents. Wish they could talk as freely as we are able to talk. If these are not addressed, it results in complications. I think Deepa and Johan would have many, many more such stories. What violence can do to children, many things, even subtle things, we don't understand. So providing a safe environment is part of trauma-informed care. How to go about it? I've borrowed a lot of notes from Dr. Sunny Philip. He's working on it for the past so many years. And so, identify people who want to care, who want to be caregivers. That's the first step. That's what all this conference is about. Why did T4L bring you all here? We're looking for potential caregivers in the community, teachers, pastors, social workers, counselors. But this is nothing about counseling. We don't use the word counseling. Friends caring for friends, that's the basic concept. That's how T4L started. Role of a friend in trauma-informed care. All of us know our first go-to person is a friend. Self-awareness for caring, our own limitations, shortcomings. It can be a barrier in trauma-informed care. And initiating and establishing care groups within our community, thus leading into self-healing communities. That's what we plan to do in Wayanad, if I'm correct. How to go about it? Each of us here can look out for people. There are many organizations who don't have it as part of their system. Trauma-informed care is much needed in every system. Slowly it's coming up. We have internal complaints committee where if there is sexual violence, sexual abuse in workplace, people can report. So we are becoming more and more aware of the need for trauma-informed care. There are grievance committees now. Sensitizing communities. And faith-based organizations are one of the most useful places where through faith-based organizations, we can do a lot of trauma-informed care. And as always, Sunny quotes that we need to provide a non-anxious, non-prejudiced, empathetic response. As we said, trauma has no religion or caste or community. And provide the needed educational support necessary to recognize, respond to the impacts of trauma. That's where training comes in. Thanks to Dr. Sunny Philip, he's worked out a big proposal on this. And what are the challenges or needs? Again, we heard about vicarious trauma, secondary traumatic stress. Many here were in tears, crying yesterday. Compassion fatigue, which can't be ignored. Stress and burnout, PTSD syndrome, toxic relationships, workplace, work practices. All these can be major barriers or challenges. We need to be aware and need to be sensitive about these challenges. Training in trauma-informed care, again, T4L plans to take this forward in a big way. It's been doing, but it may expand, where it's all about friends caring for friends, building caring relationships, features of learn about trauma-informed care, and developing trauma-informed communities. I think it was Pastor Ramesh and others who brought these people here. They are trauma-informed communities. When we came first, it was a few places, schools, people like Shanta, who gave place, provided opportunities for us to meet with people. So we are in the process of developing trauma-informed communities. So we don't have to be here all the time. They are doing the work. So what is here for you? You'll have to write it down for yourselves. Maybe take some time. Take a paper. Just write down. What is trauma-informed care is all about. Give you a few minutes. Are you trauma-informed care? If so, in what way? It's your organization. Leave organizations out now. Just look at you. And always available adult. How can you respond to your immediate trauma around you or major disasters like this we heard about? Tammy talked a lot about their way of coping, approach of forgiveness, not so easy. Whether it's art form, so many things you've been hearing. Johan talked about children, developmental stage, how important it is. Deepa talked about several approaches, layers of trauma. So at the end of it, what is it that you want to take? This doesn't need a psychologist or a psychiatrist. What is needed is a person who wants to respond, would like to be trained in giving care to people. I hope you're not trying to finish what Sunita gave you, the exercise. I hope you're doing only this. You were also absorbed in drawing. So if you're finished, we're going into a short time of debriefing, not really, we're not going to have much time, so I'm going to ask you to do a simple activity. I'm going to ask you to respond or show your response through an action. If I say fear, you have to keep your hands, okay? If I say confusion, if you want to say helpless, just show. How do you show helpless? If you say angry, so how did you feel when you heard the survivors share their stories? You'll have to say how you felt through your actions. Can't see? Some are not having anything. Frozen. You can see Deepa. Yeah. How did you feel? Oh, fear. Okay. Fear? Sad. Okay. Yeah. So, how did you feel? Please show your. So all those who, Sister Shalini has got two things, sad and helpless. All those who felt sad, please get up. And so, there were so many of you. And those who felt angry, please get up. Others can sit. Those who felt angry. How many of you felt angry? Anyone? How many of you felt fear? Anyone here? Please stand up. How many of you felt helpless? Okay. Okay, thank you. I just want to finish with asking you, please sit, thank you. So do you see that there are different kinds of responses? Response to trauma may not be always the same. Shalini's sister said both sad and helpless. Some felt sad, some felt helpless. There are different ways, unique ways we respond to trauma. I'm going to ask you to share. One, how did you feel? What are the two things that you want to share? And what is one question you have? Somebody earlier said, I have why. That was Cami who said why. So you're going to share, how did you feel? What are the two things that you want to share from all these sessions of hearing stories of survivors? Third is, what is the question you're left with? Could be a why, which Cami asked, or it could be something else. So, can we start? A quick one, because we don't have much time left. So, and it has to be very short, maybe just 2 sentences. And we don't have time for stories, so we'll just short response, please. Who will start? Maybe Cami will start. You can stay there and talk. Maybe we need a mic to pass through.
Two questions. I think Listening to the survivors' stories made me really look at the whole. I felt helpless and heartbroken, and yet a lot of hope, especially when the fire and rescue, Mr. Nibildas, when he spoke, and even the ambulance driver, and even the ward member. So I felt hope and helplessness. That's the two things. That's how I felt. I felt hope again. There was a desperateness, but also a hope. It's a in between. Two questions. The why is there, and well, I have a question which is a why, and I have an answer which is a because. But yeah, that's.
Thank you, Kami. Sister? Yeah, Achin wants to say. Okay. After Shalini, Sister Achin will say.
As for me, I said I was sad. I am sad and helpless. Helpless now after the situation, after the flood came. I'm helpless. I can't prevent the flood or I can't save the people from the mud. And the life is lost. I can't restore. Sad when I see the people suffering. I feel very deep empathy. I feel their loss, so I was sad. But I have a very serious question. How can we prevent this? Because we have all scientific development and all the claim that we have. How can we respond to the caution given by the nature? And how can we save people? Instead of waiting to, rehabilitate after the loss, prevent the loss. And we people also need to obey rules and regulations. And the pain related to that, we need to undergo education. Education, yeah. We can't afford to lose people like this again.
Thank you, Sister. I think Agustina. Achin.
Listening to the stories of these survivors, I felt hope coming back. Because knowing their stories earlier, when Suresh who spoke this morning, when we first visited him, he was just crying. All the talk was done by his wife. Everything was told by his wife. But today, we thought she is speaking, but he came forward and he spoke. And I told him, thank you. So there's a hope. That's the feeling I got. Of course, when I heard the stories of the fire and rescue worker, I said, the stories I knew was very limited. Much more is there. So the question I asked myself at the end is, what and how? What do I do? And how to go about it in caring for them.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone?
ഈ ഇമോഷൻസ് എല്ലാം പറഞ്ഞപ്പം അവർക്ക് നമുക്ക് കൊടുക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്നത് ഒരു ഹോപ്പും അതേപോലെ അവർ സപ്പോർട്ട് ചെയ്യാന്നാണ്. ഈ എല്ലാം നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ട ആളുകൾക്ക് എന്ത് ഹോപ്പാണ് നമ്മൾ അവർക്ക് ഉണ്ടാവുക? ഇപ്പോൾ നമ്മൾ ഹെൽപ്ലെസ് ആകുന്നത് എങ്ങനെയാണെന്ന് വെച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ അവർക്ക് എന്താണോ വേണ്ടത് അത് നമുക്ക് കൊടുക്കാൻ പറ്റാത്തത് കൊണ്ടാണ്. അപ്പോൾ അവർക്കൊരു ഹോപ്പ് ഇതാണ് അറിയുകയാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ നമുക്ക് അവരെ ഹെൽപ്പ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. എല്ലാം നഷ്ടപ്പെട്ടവർക്ക് എന്താണ് ഒരു പ്രതീക്ഷ ഉണ്ടാവുക? അവർ നമ്മളെങ്ങനെ ഹെൽപ്പ് ചെയ്യും? പ്രതീക്ഷ ഇല്ലാത്ത ആളുകൾ എന്ത് ചെയ്യും? അതാണ്
എന്നെ ചോദിക്കുവാണ്.
ഒരു ക്വസ്റ്റ്യൻ ആയിട്ട് ചോദിക്കുക.
അച്ഛൻ പറഞ്ഞില്ലേ, ഇറ്റ്സ് എ പ്രോസസ്, ഇറ്റ് വിൽ ഹാപ്പൻ.
I'll just translate the question. The question that she has asked is, we are looking at a situation where people have lost everything. So how can we talk about hope in that context where people have lost? Is that okay?
Very valid question, yes.
And helplessness is because we are not able to do anything in response to that. But how do you talk about hope in a context where they have lost everything. What is hope? How do you define hope for them?
It's very valid question. Thank you for asking. That's how we all feel, right? When everything is lost, what do we do? Takes time, I think. Time. We don't know. None of us have answers for this. Anyone else? Would you?
I do have a response to this question for this young lady. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Terrible with nature. And I think it comes from my work, when you work with individuals. I believe that the human being has inherently, we have hope. When we are alive, we have life. Nobody has nothing. You know, you are alive, and the very fact that you are here or talking tells me that you wish to move from this forward. So if there is life and there is intent to move forward, then that same, I keep coming back to this like some old record. The human connection and caring and love is very, very powerful. So I believe that we can tap into that, and that is the magic of human communication.
Thank you, Deepa. Anyone else?
Research tells us that there are three things that protect us and help us grow. They are optimism, hope, and resilience. So optimism, hope, and resilience. Human, as long as you're alive, it is possible for us to rebuild. So these are research, scientific stuff that I'm talking about here. Hope is lost when we give up. We give up because we haven't built resilience, and we don't have resilience because we don't believe in something better, which is optimism. I don't think I have explained myself well. This is a fairly larger topic, but I just thought I'll mention those three words to you to do some research if you like. Optimism, resilience, and hope. So when any of these three are lost, we find life very difficult. That's when depression and anxiety and other things set in. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sun.
Dr. Johan.
I'd also just like to add something to what both of them have said. I think one very important thing is meaning. And I think it doesn't matter what someone is going through, provided they can find some meaning in the experience, and meaning is what will drive them to have hope and will drive them to want to move forward and all of that. So meaning is a very important thing, and that is really the challenge in such difficult situations, to make meaning of what has happened. So I think, and each person has to find meaning. We can, through relationships, through your inherent strengths, through your community, through your history, through your worldview and your faith, all of these things can contribute to meaning. And I think that's really the crux. There's no answer, but there is hope in finding meaning. I just wanted to add that. Thank you.
Thank you, Johan. You all can read the book by Viktor Frankl, Search for Meaning. It's a lovely book. Students also can read. The one who asked this question, recommend this book.
Thank you. Since we are already discussing, you can do your reflections, you can debrief in that sense, but at the same time, would like to see if this can lead to a brief panel discussion. So, beginning from yesterday, we started with, of course, we could hear invaluable voices and stories. There is no way that we can appreciate the significance that has added to our conference. But looking at the academic side, we began with Dr. Sunny Philip, who introduced us to terms related to trauma, especially collective trauma, the terms and constructs that are part of this topic, and spoke about adversity and growth that can happen as a result of that. That was followed by Dr. Deepa Ramaswamy, who led us through a great session in which she spoke about how exposure differs and even response to it also differs from person to person. She was speaking about layers of trauma and also touched on the importance of the human connection. After that, we had a session by Dr. Johan Ebenezer, who connected child development, who introduced again, who brought us to the theories in connection with child development and how trauma can impact a child, because so many children are definitely affected and they will continue to live with that for their life. So it gave us an opportunity to look seriously in that direction, and thank you, Doctor, for putting it in the context of the child development theories that we have. After that, we had Dr. Cami, who brought into this discussion the issue of tribal conflicts, ethnic violence from her own experience in Papua New Guinea and Manipur, and we looked at the context of collective trauma in that angle. Today we had Dr. Sunita Verghese lead us through healing rituals and art, how art can be a part of the healing journey, the journey towards healing. And finally we had Mrs. Valsa Augustine, who helped us to see what trauma-informed care could be at an individual level and at a collective level. So these are the topics that we try to cover. But then, if there is any question, all the panelists are here, so you can specifically ask a resource person or keynote speaker regarding their topic, and I believe they all know each other, they all work together, so they can also collectively respond to any question or any discussion that you would like to generate from the talk that has happened here. So we don't have a lot of time, but please take this opportunity to ask specific questions from what has happened here.
I'm happy to be part of this conference, and thank you for all the speakers. They've done a great job. One question that I would like to ask is that, as a therapist, what are the good modalities that you can bring in for this recovery process? Or any particular therapies which can be suggested for both collective and also in individual trauma patients?
Who would like to take that question from the panel? Dr. Deepa?
Nobody wants lunch, because I tend to be long-winded. Okay, this is my take on therapy, and I will look for agreement from the others in this room. I do believe that there is this concept that there are many different therapies. You know, you've ever heard of CBT, RET, so many TTs. And what I have personally come to believe is these are techniques, and they are very good. But the foundation of any therapy or any intervention is the ability for the person to experience a warm, trusting, safe space in which they can be empowered to understand themselves and to decide the change. For medical students, I take this, when they ask me what is psychotherapy, I take them through this example. I told you my brain tends to think in analogies. So I say, let's say you're going for a wedding and you want to dress up. You've dressed up and you want to see what you look like. What do? What would you do? You look into the mirror. And then you look into the mirror and then you see, okay, is my hair looking all right? Is my pallu looking long? Is this all that? And then you decide to correct whatever is wrong. Now, I think that good therapy is like that. The mirror does not tell me what to change or what not to change. But without the mirror, I can't do that. So, any good therapy is like a good undistorting mirror. And remember, when you go look in the mirror, you don't want to go look in a mirror in where 100 different people are there. Where do you go? You stand and you go quietly by yourself and you stand. So privacy, the opportunity to do it in a safe, quiet space alone. And then you look into this mirror and the mirror gives you this reflection. And then you decide what you want to do. And what you decide may not be the same as what somebody else decides. You know, you may think I look horrible. I am very pleased with how I look. Finally, that's what the bottom line. So I think that whether the mirror is round or oval or square or vertical, the qualities of the mirror are what are important. The space in which the mirror is available is also important. And that, I think, is what therapy is. So each person will have their own shape and size of room and whatever. But it's those essential ingredients in therapy which are important. That's my take on that.
Anybody else who would like to add to that? Or appreciate that? To you? It was. Next question. Anybody else? Thank you, Justice, for asking the question. Thank you, Dr. Deepa, for wonderful response. Dr. Peter?
My question is, at different point of time since the incident, since the trauma, we might need to approach differently, right? So, for example, of what happened here, there's a lot of chaos going on, and let's say you are going there as a responder, and you want to give them some psychological support. So at that point of time, the things that you can provide will be different from, let's say, about 1 week later or 1 month later. So how is the best, like immediately when you go to the scene, how can you give the support? And 1 week later or sometime later, how do we modify the things? Because everything will be chaos during the time of incident, and you yourself will be like, in a different place, a new place, but you want to provide something and you're just lost because of all the chaos that's going on. So especially at that point of time, what can you offer? And sometime later, what can you do?
Sunny Uncle, anybody?
There is a difference between crisis intervention and crisis care or therapy. So, all the stories we heard of the primary caregivers or the first respondents were about crisis intervention. So, we don't have a lot of time to look at the mirrors there. We can't activate protocols in the sense that like a theory or anything, we just act. So once the intervention, that is to prevent harm and loss and so on, then therapy will have to follow what Dr. Deepa suggested about the, I love the analogy of the mirror, but would you have anything to add to that?
Can't you hear me? I'm a big gun throat. So, they did not want to, they were shocked. What did they do? They just waited. So the most important thing I think is to be there and to be ready to respond to when they indicate. That is where the training comes in. That is where the technique comes in. So these are skills and powerful skills which need to be used, learned and used judiciously. It's, so it's, but the core thing is about being available. ഞാൻ ശരിയായിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞില്ലേ?
Gambira.
For her session. But that person didn't say anything, but when they wanted to go, the child ponda. So clearly the presence, just the presence was very powerful. And we only need to look back on our own lives to understand that. There are times in my life where I have been miserable and a friend has just refused to go away. They'll ask you, what's wrong? Nothing. Come on, what's wrong? Nothing. No? So the verbal and the non-verbal are totally mismatching. But the person refuses to go, and that's enough. We've all experienced that. So, correct. Yes.
I often give an example, something that happened to me in a training in Uganda. I was conducting a training and there was a counselor, rather a psychologist there. And she said, sir, I like to give an example. And she said, what is it? 5 o'clock, I'm closing my office and a young girl walks in and says, I need to talk to you, I need to talk to you, I need to talk to you. And she said, I also need to leave because I need to pick up my daughter from the nursery school. So, but she just felt it was important for her to let this girl come in. So she came in and the therapist is saying to the group, she sat on her chair. The therapist sat on her chair and this girl came and lay flat at her feet. And she just lay there for about 25 minutes, then got up and said, thank you very much, and just walked out, absolutely feeling fantastic. So as what Dr. Deepak said, sometimes therapy is not what you do, it is also what you don't do. So I thought that story was very profound for me, and I've said this so many times.
Anybody else asking questions? Yeah, you want to add? Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Chauhan.
Yeah, just to add to what's already been said, I think a lot of it has been said. One thing is, I think in the intervention stage, it's really important to think of what are the immediate needs. Sometimes when we go to a situation, we are always sitting and thinking, what should I do? And how can I help? How can I make this person feel better? In the immediate crisis, feeling better is not the first priority. So there will be other more pressing things which will get done. And, things like physical safety, things like, their physical health, financial protection, things like this, transport, and just getting their bearings itself is a problem, then they're not really sitting and thinking about how bad they're feeling. That will come later. So often, we don't really have to do anything extremely emotional at that time. And as Deepa ma'am said, presence is important. Presence helps a lot because it provides a sense that there is someone there. That's one. The other thing is listening. And I think we can't emphasize that most of therapy is listening. I think in whichever school you take and whatever thing you take, the mirror is a good analogy for that. It's listening and reflecting and helping them to. So often listening is one, building support systems. Most of those support systems are already there. We don't have to add more. Every person has their own internal resilience that can be built, and they have supports around them as well. So there's internal supports, like their faith, their worldview, their own skills, their own capabilities. There's external support like family, community, and other things around them, friends. So we need to build support. We don't have to create support. So very often that's what we think that, what can I do additionally to bring there? what we need to do is build the existing supports that are already there. I think so. Listening and building support. Listening, building support. But all this after the immediate need is met. So I think that one way of thinking about this. Yeah.
Dr. Shanti.
This morning we listened to that couple sharing their story with us. What they told was like when they reached to a place where they saw some light that was at a higher level than their house, there were a group of people who helped them at that time of crisis. So I'm thinking, see, these people were not trained in TIC or anything. That's the innate human nature we all have. They were never trained about you have to do this, do that, nothing. That thing came out of their own love. And they did not allow them to go and see the daughter because they valued their life. Life was valued by them. So they knew what to give immediately. They said, even the dresses were not, they were torn and things like that. Probably I was thinking those people would have given them their dresses, washed them. If they had not washed properly, they would have asked them to use their washrooms, asked them, given some hot drinks or something which is so much cold, and given their dresses, made them sit there, not letting them to go, otherwise they will lose their life. And they took them to WIMS hospital, got them admitted there. So that is at that point of crisis, even without any, training of all these sorts, that human nature in us, generally it happens. It's not the only disaster we have heard about. Many disasters where people in that community, nearby community, who are not related to them, they responded like that, even without any training like this. So that was going on in my mind. And at the time of crisis, I think that people who have that humane nature, it's there generally and they help. And most of our help will be after that. After that, that's what I feel, When I came for this conference, I was thinking something mental health and my path is something different. What will I learn? But after coming here, I could network with so many people. When I am working with the tribal communities, so I have visited already almost 10 tribal communities. Their needs are different. So when I come here and I was able to network with them, I know, okay, this person can be connected with this, connected with, that's how either we can help ourselves if we have skills by intervention, or if we have the means to support them, we can, or if we can connect them to someone who can help them. So that is my, perception after this conference.
Thank you, Dr. Shanti. Wonderful response.
I am also thankful to be here. I think the perspective from both ends, some sufferings coming from externally, and some suffering come from our own hands. So we know people, as we have innate ability for goodness, as well as we have an ability to create pain on ourselves and on others. So as Dr. Johan said that about taming the dragon, I think the youngsters, because we too mainly focusing on, we giving care and attention once something happened is necessary. It is, but even before that, we can be making these resources available from our colleges or from our students level. How within themselves there is a possibility for goodness as well as possibility to do harm, and how they can work that energy or life focusing on that goodness. And I think that is also an ways that how we can bring that about, in a multicultural, multi-belief place, how we can bring that about. So we are not just being there once something happened. Even before that, we are making conscious that there is this, that we ourselves can create pain and suffering. So that is.
Thank you, Shibi. Response.
I just want to add when you were talking, and when you were talking, something really clicked in me. It was when this Mr. Nibal Das was saying he went to this difficult place. This man was kudingified in that, really tough place. Nobody else could take him off. That was the role he had to play. He had to come down to the level and take that extra effort and build a bridge, do whatever, and go save. That was his role. But when Preeta and Suresh were talking, and you said that they saw a light, and they made their way there. So there are things that people can do on their own. The light is there. They could make a decision, okay, the light is there, but let me look at my daughter first, and that could cause harm. But they say, no, that's the better thing. Sometimes people know, where to go. Other times they're stuck. And at the same time, Mr. Nibal said there were other rescue workers over there, all standing there for a long time. 6 hours this man is over there. But they did not dare go in. They were not confident enough. They feared for their own life. So that made me think, what is our strength? We can be a friend, walking with another friend, but what is our strength? And as you said, sometimes in our overzealous way to go and help, the empathy becomes toxic in a way, and we can cause more harm. So know your strength, and if you are courageous enough and you think that's the call, plunge in, go, do what Nibal did. You will drown 2-3 times, but go on. So there's a strength we need to know. We need to know ourselves, I think.
I'd like to briefly present to you, many of you are aware, but others, that we in Transform for Life, we have a paradigm where we help a person to move from being a survivor to a victim to a survivor, and a survivor to become an overcomer to become a healer. So the taste that we associate with victimhood is bitterness, but as the person becomes a survivor, that bitterness gives way to sourness. So it's still not very pleasant. So a survivor is a person who is not tasting very well with the experience that they have had, but then it's not bitter and it's sour. And then after that, when you become an overcomer, the life becomes sweet again. So, but then in our paradigm, we don't stop there. We believe that that victim deserves to be a healer. So as Cami was telling, I could see that Nabil Das, that fire and rescue officer, as a healer. And we don't associate a taste with the healer, we associate, it's called fragrance. So across the river, he spread a fragrance that this person, I am safe, or that person just became unconscious with the final thinking that someone has come to rescue me. So it is that fragrance. So when we as caregivers, if we can be that non-anxious presence, we don't have to say much, but that fragrance means a lot to the people whom we are connecting with. It could be in a state of dire need, where emotional needs are not important, but still that you become a fragrance in that context. But maybe he is not equipped, I don't know, I'm making a judgment. Maybe he is not equipped to walk with a person on the long term, but somebody else could be that non-anxious presence to walk in the long term. Anything else to add to, or any one more question? Would you like to ask one more question? We have this Alive training starting on January 25th for 10 Saturdays. Anybody interested, you can connect with us because you have registered. So 25th we are starting an online batch, Saturday 3 to 5 p.m. So you're free to join, you're welcome to join that program. If there are no more questions, I'd like to invite Dr. Sunny Uncle for the final words. Then we will close with a word of thanks. So we are towards the end. Before Sunny Uncle starts, we'd like to invite Mr. P.Y. Saju, in whose house we stay in our work in Mepadi, based in Mepadi. He has generously provided us his house. and we live there as our own house when we come here. And thank you. He is a student of Dr. Augustine, and that relationship has blossomed into us getting a very valuable space in Wayanad. We come from outside, but we get that valuable space to use. You have been generous. I'd like to invite you to give this gift to our dear Valsa auntie. And I will request Saju, Mr. Saju to stay here. Omna auntie, can you give this gift to?
It's been a lot of planning and preparation for this, and something happened, probably not as well as we envisioned, maybe better than what we envisioned, but that is not the point. The real point is that something did happen. Seeds of purpose and hope are planted in our thinking. And now these seeds need to be watered and nurtured so that they will sprout, grow, and become something a lot bigger and better than the seed themselves. And that is what we need to do. Otherwise, these are just informations that will be stacked away in the back of our brain for a little while and then replaced by some other information. And that's what brains do. So we need to nurture these, and the best way to do that is to keep these seeds alive first. Alive? Alive conference? So keep these seeds alive first and allow it to sprout and grow. And one of the ways that we can do is to get involved. Don't wait until we know everything or until we have all the answers or all the training. Just start. Start with all the failures and weaknesses and uncertainties and frailties that we have, but start. In fact, the recipe for resilience is, do you know what it is? Do something. That's what they say. You want to be resilient? Don't sit there and think about resilience. Get off and do something. So my suggestion to you is, if there is a gift, a learning, a benefit from this training, it will be go and do something. Whatever it is. Even if it completely a failure, still you have the satisfaction that you have done something. It is far better to do something and fail than not to do anything and not fail. Dr. Deepa sent you a book reference by Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. And in that book, Frankl says that the difference between people who had hope and people who did not have hope, as he observed, was the people who put on their shoes in the morning and the people who did not put on their shoes in the morning. It was so cold, freezing. The people who put on their shoes in the morning survived. The people who did not put on their shoes in the morning and just stayed in the bed did not survive. But the reason why they did not put on their shoes is because the day's work is too hard. They were in a labor camp, in a concentration camp. So they had already given up. So my suggestion is put on the shoes and do something, go somewhere. If you are caring, people can smell it. You don't have to have a bad saying, I am a caring person, come and talk to me, or I want to talk to you. That is very caring. So a caring person has a smell. It's amazing. People know when you care. You don't have to say it, you don't have to do much. So develop this habit, attitude of caring, and people will talk to you. One of the things that I do, especially in Melbourne or anywhere, if I can, is if I'm in the city, Melbourne, where I live, I go a little earlier than my appointment for anything. And outside my church, there are a series of steps going into the main road. I just go and sit on one of those concrete stone, actually it's a stone step. Just, you have to look absolutely useless when you sit in a place like that. If you look, you have something to do, nobody will come to you. Look useless. In other words, you're not reading anything. You're not looking at your mobile phone, you just sit there. I guarantee you, within 5 minutes, somebody will sit next to you and they want to talk to you. The longest I had to wait was 13 minutes. I have made it a study. It's just something you have to invest time. God bless you, and thank you so much for being here with us. We have periodical training, or rather workshops. Do you want to say something about it? I lost my throat.
Yeah. Before I make the announcements and deliver the vote of thanks, we would like to take this time to honor two people very specially. I would like to call upon Dr. Sunita Verghese to give a small token of gift to Mr. Sakai, who lives very near to that affected area, almost a few meters away. And his house has become a center of relief work. I think it continues to be a center of work there. You can see police uniform in his house, all these uniforms lying there, people hanging it in his house. He has opened up his house and space for the relief work. It continues even now. There is no value that you can put to the work that he has done, and he has been so useful in what has happened there. So we would like to honor him, especially on this occasion. Plus, not only for Wayanad, he has been a great support for our initiative in Wayanad.
Pastor Sakai's house. During the week, he is like an asylum and a residence for the police force. So Sunday, they all pack their things, put it in the corner, and then have a church service. Then it is a police accommodation. So there you are. Well done.
Thank you. We would like to honor one more person, Mr. Ramesh, who came to know about the landslide and walked 9 kilometers to reach there and start the relief work. Not only from that day, he has been very much involved in relief, rehabilitation, and also to T4L. He is so willing to serve us, like he will be dropping people to the bus stand or getting them. He received me when I came here for the first time. I did not know what Wayanad was. So he has been continuously helping us as a family, and for all his efforts and courage, we would like to honor Mr. Ramesh also. Dr. Sunita Verghese. Thank you. Thank you. We have come to the close of our program and would like to thank, I believe I'll do justice to it by remembering all of you. Before thanking you all, would like to remind you that we are focused on equipping people to be caregivers, mostly focusing on lay people, how lay people can bridge the gap that exists between professionals and people in need. Do you agree that a gap exists? So that we have wonderful professionals in our country, we have a lot of need in our country, but most of the people in need do not make it to the professionals, and lay people, the community members, can bridge that gap by being caregivers themselves and also assisting them with professional help or direction, being the person who takes them to the right professional when they are not enough to care for them. So a lot of training programs that we do online and offline, so you can be a part of it. You can be one of the facilitators in the coming days if you complete the training, or you can arrange a training program for your community also. So the details you can find on our website, or you can connect with us. Since lack of time, I would like to skip that part, but you're welcome to be a part of this community. First of all, I would like to thank the community of Wayanad for their wholehearted welcome, willingness to partner, and all the support we receive for our work here. So when we come to Wayanad, we see a community that is willing to join hands. Somebody opens up their house, somebody gives us a meal, somebody joins us for a training program. So there are no words to measure how the community has supported. We are one of the players. We have received that support. We continue to receive that support. So I would like to begin by thanking the people of Wayanad for all the help that they are giving to Transform for Life. Secondly, regarding the conference, we would like to thank all the participants. So I'd like to begin there. Without you, all of us will be talking to empty chairs. Maybe it will make sense, but then thank you for making the time and taking the days off. Traveling a great distance or skipping your college or getting permission from your college, whatever, thank you for being the participant of this conference and adding so much value. It is not accidental. You were here to add value and worth to this program. So thank you. Thank you in one word to all the participants who have come here. I'd like to thank several of our sponsors, naming two of them who made this conference possible. One is Tessie, who have generously supported our work in Wayanad, and second is the ESAF Bank and ESAF Foundation, who have also partnered with us in the context of training people to be caregivers and promote mental health. So in one word, I would like to thank all our supporters, especially sponsors, especially mentioning Tessie and ESAF Bank, ESAF Foundation. We had a great panel of keynote speakers. So we would like to thank Dr. Sunny Philip, who is the founder and executive director. Thank you, Sunny Uncle, for pioneering into the little explored area of trauma, for giving a form, structure, and words to actually speak of unspeakable pain and memories of trauma. Thank you for choosing this field, for dragging us along and doing this work. And this conference is happening because of his years of work and research in this area. We are so thankful that you are part of this team and leading us, in fact, and also in the name of the conference, we would like to thank you for all the words of wisdom that we could get from you. I'd like to thank our esteemed panel of keynote speakers, Dr. Deepa Ramaswamy, Professor of Psychiatry, CMC Velo. Her session full of power and points. Though you did not want to use the PPT, and for all the learning you gave to the community here, both in your session and also outside of the session, we learned a lot from you. We're so grateful that you are here. Thank you for being here. Dr. Johan Ebenezer, psychiatrist and founder of Health Soch Academy. We would like to thank you for being with us and for your session on collective trauma and child development. You went to great details. AI helped you, but you manipulated it or you used it, but the session was so good. We brought in so much detail into the content that we were building here. Thank you for being here, being generous with your time and leading us in your session. Thank you for your friendship and thank you for being here. Dr. Sunita Verghese happened to drop, maybe I'll need a pharmacist to read my own handwriting. Okay, so Dr. Sunita dropped into one of our sessions. She just came to attend, and Dr. Sunny Uncle called her to answer something, and she ended up taking that session. I hope you remember that. Since then, she has been a regular resource person for us, and she sets apart her work, and with great passion, she comes to help us. She has led sessions online and also offline. Thank you for your interest in the area of palliative care, creativity, and thank you for leading us and helping us to think about how art, how our own creativity can have a role in helping us to heal and helping the community to heal. I believe Dr. Sunita is committed to helping the community in Wayanad, so all the Wayanad people, she is going to come again, that's for sure, and she is going to make you all take out your drawing pencils, colors, and a lot of things are going to happen. Wayanad will be colorful because of what she is going to do. Thank you for being here, for leading your session, and for your commitment to the work here. We'd like to thank Mrs. Valsa Agustin, who is a trustee of Transform for Life, our own team member, our own beloved Valsa auntie, and she's a board member. Thank you for taking the effort to prepare the session, delivering it, and being with us in all that we are doing. Thank you, Valsa auntie. Let us clap for Valsa auntie, who is always there to go to any lengths. Next, she is going to Manipur, so she is ready to go to any lengths to help us and help our work. Thank you, Valsa auntie, for your support and for leading us in your session. We'd like to thank Cami Thomas for taking the time to be here while she was on vacation. She has numbered days, but then she chose to be with T4L because she's so connected to our work. She's serving in Papua New Guinea. We'd like to thank you for being here, for sharing your work in PNG and in the way that you connected the trauma of communities in PNG, Manipur, and also with the topic that we were discussing, collective trauma of the people here in Wayanad. Thank you for your session. Thank you for being a friend and being a support to our work throughout. Thank you, Cam. In absence, I would like to thank Dr. Verghese Philip, Dr. VP, Dr. Nirmala. He is the chairperson of Transform for Life, for taking the time to be here. We value his leadership and guidance and wisdom, the way he leads us. In their absence, would like to mention a word of thanks. I would like to thank Reverend Augustine Koshi and Mrs. Omana Augustine. This work started with them in Wayanad, and he was leading the ministry, the work in India, Transform for Life work in India. Thank you for all the hard work both of you have put in building this work in Wayanad, caring for people, visiting them door to door, and in the name of the conference, for all the support that we received, coming early, staying late, and for all the work that you have done. In one word, we would like to thank you. Thank you, both of you, for your generous contribution. In absence, would like to thank Dr. George Cherian, who left because he has a visa appointment and he is not happy to go. Believe his heart is here. But he mobilizes us, he mobilized us, he energizes us, he keeps us on our toes. This conference is his idea. And we thought he is crazy, but we pulled it off. In his absence, we would like to thank Dr. George Cherian for being the inspiration, and also remember Mr. Brighton Anbu, who we were going about our lives. This disaster happened, but in our WhatsApp group, Brighton said one message: this disaster has happened, what are we going to do? That one question led to a series of actions. One message on a group. He could not make it because of his teaching commitments. He's assigned and he had to do his work. But he's very much here. He's watching us live. He's seeing you all. Be very careful. So in absence, and maybe he's listening online, I would like to thank Mr. Brighton and his family for being the inspiration for our work in Wayanad. We'd like to thank Shantidara Convent. Hope you enjoyed the stay here. Yes? Can you say? Yes. And all those who were not staying, did you enjoy the food? Allowed? So we'd like to thank the sisters here who work very hard to keep this facility spotless, clean, and in such a beautiful state, and they have been such good hosts for us. They tolerate us when we work there late into the night and all our visits that we had. So we take this time to thank the sisters of Shantidara Convent for helping us to have this conference in such a beautiful venue. We would like to thank our photographers, videographers for their hard work, for their support. Before the program began, they helped us to live stream. This is going live, and they are going to give us the resources so we can use it for documentation. So thank you, the whole team. We would like to thank you for your hard work and assistance. We would like to thank the team managing the light and sound for coming here on time and for your wonderful service that we could pull this program. Something goes wrong in this area of sound or light, it will spoil the program, but you have been here. Thank you for your hard work and for being here in supporting the program. One person is a giant in terms of this conference, and that is Lindsay, Miss Lindsay John. Miss Lindsay John, and she's our team member, but many of you are here because she worked hard. Not only worked hard, she is a persistent person. She doesn't take no for an answer. Even if it's a no, you will hear from her, you will see her, and most of the time she will make it happen. So this conference happened because we were away. She alone was here, she and her friends. She has a lot of friends. You need anything getting done in Wayanad, you know whom to go, it is Lindsay. She knows people everywhere. So Lindsay worked hard for this conference. Not only Lindsay, we would like to thank her entire family. We recruited Lindsay, but Lindsay recruited the family to do everything in this. So Mr. David, husband, the lovely daughters, Daniel and Delna, and also his brother, Chotu. He's not small, but he's Chotu, okay. He's a big frame, but we call him Chotu. So the whole family is behind Lindsay in the work that she's doing. Thank you for all your hard work. This is no justice to the work that you have done, but all of us are always grateful for what you're doing. Thank you, Lindsay, and thank you to the family for helping us run this conference. We would like to especially mention our board member, Sister Shalini, for coming here. For all the board members who are supporting us from away. We would like to mention Hima, who is representing ISA Foundation, and she has taken the time to come here. I think I've covered everyone, but all of you, in one word, thank you. This is our conference. This is for the people in Wayanad, and let us join our hands together as we build the work and help the community come back or make the journey to come back. Thank you. God bless.
We just want to honor Sister Shalini, who's come all the way from Bangalore. She's one of our board members, like GB already mentioned. So please appreciate this token of our love.
Those of you who have received this book, this is hard work of Madam Eva. She has put an enormous amount of work into it to create this, but we also want to honor the two people who have contributed to this, the artists in this. They're people who are struggling, really struggling, but their contribution is going to bring great thought and probably healing to a lot of people who will see this book and understand this book. So we want to say thank you to both of them, Niru in Australia and Ramya Chitigala in Bangalore. So they have worked on it and we're very grateful. And also GB. The man of many talents. I was sitting there admiring his ability to speak Malayalam and then translate from Malayalam to English and then do all amazing things. Thank you very much. It was Lindsay's birthday yesterday. Wow. So I can't start anything because my throat is out. So Eva, could you start something?
It's today.
It's today. Okay, wow, it's today. Come to the front. This is something authentic from mine.
Thank you.
We'll quickly announce the names and Sunny Uncle will give the certificates.
What's the certificate for?
For participation.
Oh, okay. So am I getting one?
No.
Your side.
Your signatures there. Can I call upon the students to start with? Can we have Afrina M? Afrina M. Samiha CK. Samiha CK. Fatima Rizwana. Minsha Shaukat Ali. Jinsha PS. Sania PK. Rinsha CK. Dilna OK. Risna Sharon Shamir. Risna, are you here? Risna? Sick, okay. Aisha Nida. Rena Bishara. Safwana A. That's Rena. Safwana A. Sahala Shirin M. Shehla Sharon V. Arshita P. Ummu Hasiba PK. Habiba PK. Sorry. Tamra Rasi M. Alan Babu. Sariga I. Sariga I. Srijana PJ. Mithuna Sebastian. Anaga Babu. Fatima Farhana. Jasna Rashid. And Sister Litty Matthew. All the other participants, please collect your certificates and books from us. We thought you wouldn't want to come up here. Thanks. So once again, thank you all so much for being here. It has really meant a lot to us, and I think for us, we've learned so much more than we thought we would, and it's been such a blessing to be here, so thank you. These books are also available for sale. So if anyone wants to purchase it, it's been given for free for all the participants of the workshop, of the conference. But if you would like to purchase these books, they are available with us. So please get in touch with us. It's available at a subsidized cost than what the cost was really. So please get in touch with us and we'll be happy to give you all copies of it. Thank you so much. Please join us for lunch. Lunch is in the dining hall. Yeah. Can we take one last photograph with everyone before we all leave? Okay, so the students of both colleges, can you please come forward? And the delegates, the speakers of the conference, the speakers as well, the speakers, to come forward for the photograph.